It all kicks off at Salmonati Academy, where kids from every corner of the continent flock in, chasing their big dreams and grinding toward their futures. This place runs on pure merit. If you can't hit the bar, they cut you loose without mercy. Nozomu Bounties is our main guy, and get this, he's been there for 2 whole years, down to the exact moment 2 years ago. He stepped into that school side by side with his childhood friends, and the moment they crossed the doors, they left every other thing behind, just like that. His closest childhood buddy was Ken Noties, and the other was Lisa Hounds. Before they stepped into the academy, they'd been split up and different. One day, she and her parents packed up and rolled into their little village. Their little village sat on the edge of a small country, and they got along great with the neighboring kingdom. While Nozomu was out fishing, Lisa slid up and asked, right then and there, if he had a moment. Once their eyes lock, Nozomu's cheeks instantly flare red as he can't stop staring at her. Then he leans in and tells her, "If you're asking, I'm free," and she just nods back, yes. She begged him to stay so they could talk, introduced herself, and then she was. After years on the road with her mom, everything shattered when her father died out of nowhere. So her mother hauled them back to that tiny village to raise Lisa. Her father was an adventurer, and he'd been chasing the world ever since, always crossing borders, always hunting new ground. The pioneers who cracked open new lands lived with constant peril, and he never really wanted to gamble his life for some wild adventure. Yet as a kid, stories of past heroes hooked him hard, and that's why the tale Lisa told about her father stuck in his head. It hit him like a lightning bolt, first time they ever met, and suddenly they forgot what time even meant. They swapped hero stories for what felt like forever, and somehow nobody noticed the night had already slipped in. Because at first it was just childhood friends, but time kept turning that bond into something bigger than just friends. One day, Lisa leaned in and told him she was heading for Salmonade Academy, because she'd finally had enough of that village and wanted to chase the same dream as her father, to become a real traveler. Then he grabs her attention and begs her to take him with her. She pressed him, "Are you serious?" and demanded to know what would happen to his family. She was right, because he was an only child, and he already knew his father would clamp down hard on anything he tried to tell her. What if the girl he's crazy about follows her dreams? Would he stand in her way, or would he sprint right beside her and support every step? Then Lisa's cheeks flushed red as she stammered, asking if he'd really go through with it. For her, she looks at him, tears pouring down her face as she tells him that she beams with joy and thanks him. Then she pulls him into a tight hug, and right after, she leans in and plants a kiss on him. Back on the ground, sprawled in the grass, he muttered that he'd dreamed again. The whole country is still reeling from that demon attack, and even 20 years later, everyone calls it humanity's final stand. So they built a school together through every government office, funding it openly so it never happens again, taking in any willing soul no matter their status, and when the graduates walk out, they're handed a safe, comfortable life and a future that actually thrives. But once they start slipping in their studies, the whole class turns on them. Used to be the top kid, then suddenly their classmates sneer like they're nothing. Their whole social status is decided by magical badge ratings. Black is the absolute worst, landing dead last in 10th place. After that, as Nozomu strode down the corridor, the whole hallway buzzed with cruel whispers, people saying he was weak and should have quit school ages ago. His party laid out a messy stack of cut-out images, and his classmates mocked him non-stop for his weakness and orders him to stop. Then, just after that, things turn intense as some. He strides up, snarls at him, calling him trash right to his face from the bottom of his lungs, and Nozomu snaps. "Why are you back in class again?" That student, Mars Dickens, is the one who stepped in and made all the difference. Nozomu's usually the first one he aims at, since he's the lowest in rank, and his mood flips on a dime. Nozomu completely ignores him at first and pulls a book out of her hands. Mars snaps at him, furious over what he did, hurling insults like daggers and claiming Lisa dumped him because he can't do anything right. After that, one of Mars's henchmen asked why he was ignoring him and slams him out of the chair. Right when he was about to slam Nozomu, the teacher burst into the classroom, snapped, "What are you doing?" And the boy stammered nothing as he trailed off with a nervous half, impressing him as Mr. Anravar. Then the student leans in and tells the teacher he gave Nozomu some advice to help him level up. Anravar, Anri. Ver snaps that he should take care of his business after class and stop wasting his time. Then when Mars is still standing, Ver barks at him to get back to his seat. Mars snaps at the teacher, calling him a weed, and says he doesn't have to raise his voice for anyone to hear him. Then Amravar shoots back, asking what kind of filth someone must be to let a weed teach them. After that, Mars snapped at the teacher and claimed that, after being a black-ranked teacher for so long, the guy was basically a little off his rocker. He shoots Nozomu a look, then slips back to his spot, right as Henryvar calls Mars over after class and declares, "Class starts now." Amravar breaks down what magic really is, then shows them exactly how to use specific elements to forge spells, right up to the point where he starts telling them how. It also lays out what ritual magic really is, and how people use it like a sacred offering to the gods, begging them to send rain for the harvest. He told the students that ritual magic is one of the two modern magic types, that song magic feeds everyone the formulas, and that tomorrow they dive straight into ritual magic. He starts talking about magic, tells Nozomu to keep his distance during the lesson since he'll be a walking distraction, and the whole class bursts into laughter at him. The teacher slams the truth into them. "You're no better than me," he growls, "because you're nothing but worthless black marks." Liz earned the title Red-Haired Princess for her razor-sharp grades, and the academy even put her beloved in the spotlight to match her shine. But he completely tanked, because he'd never been a bookworm and had never even held a sword before. He never realized just how brutal the rules were at that school, and that's why he slipped behind so fast. But he refused to quit, kept grinding every day even though It wasn't easy for him. He had friends and the person he loved waiting to help, but deep down he just couldn't shake one drive. He had to keep his promise to Lisa and get stronger, even if it felt like nothing would change. A spark of power finally ignited in him, and then disaster struck, slamming the door shut. His skills stopped growing like some brutal limit had been locked in place. Lisa stepped right beside him and cranked up his training, hoping it would help. He started to bounce back again, and Lisa wouldn't let him face it alone. So he pushed harder than ever, and then one day. Today, Lisa cut ties, ended their relationship, and walked away to say goodbye to him for real. He stared in shock, because she never once showed even a hint of irritation, and stood by him no matter what. Out of nowhere, rumors tore through the school. Everyone swore he'd betrayed Lisa with another woman. He swore the accusations were lies, but nobody bought it. Lisa was gorgeous and brilliant, and all he had was the label of a hopeless failure with no future, so the rumor ripped through town. Everyone treated him like trash. No friends left. A bunch of people jumped on the bullying bandwagon, and some even crossed the line into actual physical violence. He tried to talk to Lisa, but her eyes burned with cold hatred still. Still, he treated his studies like life or death, grinding until his body begged for mercy. Because someday he swore he'd preserve his wall point just like him. He strode down the street, eyes forward, like the whole world was moving to his rhythm. He spotted Lisa hanging out with another guy. Ken nods, the kid he's been best friends with since childhood. At first they were all in the same lane, but now he's blasting through the fastest growth on record, while Ken stays a steady, gentlemanly presence, dropping into their training sessions with Lisa like it's routine. He heard the other students whisper that he'd comforted Lisa when her heart broke, and before long, they were dating. At first, it stung seeing her beam so brightly beside him, and even in training it was obvious. Those two were outclassing every other pair in the fight drills. Seeing them side by side, it finally hit him, everything clicked. That her love for him had finally run out, and there was no spot left in her heart for him. During the demo fight, the teacher lets the students pick their own partner and promises they can use any magic. And when Kai shows up as the Eastern-style magic rep, that idiot's about to cause trouble. It's all about raw muscle and physical control, while magic, that stuff demands divine power to spark any real effect. On the continent of Archmal, they use both of these, and every scrap of ancient magic they dig up from the ruins gets hauled in there so students can dive in and study it for real. Right after that, Mars closes in on Nizam and blurts out what he's about to tell him. He's standing beside his partner in the exhibition match, wearing a smug grin like he already won. Mars snatches his massive sword and rips it free in one hard draw. Their uniforms are built for fighting, and someone laced them with basic enchantments to give them an edge. Nizumi's prized weapon is a special sword forged from an island nation, and it's the one he loves more than anything. He breaks down what a katana really is, then explains exactly how it's used, and right after that he says, "Students almost never use that sword because it's so hard to find." Then Mars fired back, asking if he was actually going to fight, before calling himself nothing but trash from the bottom of the barrel, like beating him would be a total waste. The teacher snaps, "Start it," and the second the brawl erupts, Mars charges straight into the chaos. He closes in on Nizam with his blade bared, and right as he's there, Mars lunges with a vertical slash, but Nizamu snarls through it and slams the block down. Then he digs in with everything he's got, yanking Mars' sword off course like it's weightless. Mars snaps back that he's too slow, and then Nizumo staggers back after that brutal hit, and right when Mars uses the strike to steal the moment, he swings in with a blade, only for Nizumo to barely slip out of the way. Then Mars drops in from below to smash him, but Nizumo backpedals hard and slips out of the hit. They slammed into each other at full speed and unleashed wave after wave of attacks. Nizumo barely managed to block Mars's strikes before the next impact blasted him backward. The punch landed, Mars froze like, "Is that all I've got?" And he shouted for Nizumo to surrender while Nizumo clocked the truth. Mars was using Kai. It's magic that drinks a person's life force, then blasts their body with way crazier physical power in return. Right after that, Mars comes in swinging with a full-on attack. Nizumo barely slips out of the way at the last second. Mars snaps, rage flashes in his eyes as he vows to punish him. Then he lunges in and they trade blow after blow again. Nizumo struggled to parry every punch, and he was forced to backpedal inch by inch. Mars' rage flared, and he snapped at him to step back. He kept trading punches again and again, blow for blow. But it sure looked like some invisible force had Nizumo locked in place, like he couldn't move an inch. After a brutal grind that felt endless, Mizu finally. His katana snaps into splinters, and a violent blast hurls him away. Naomi finally makes it to the place, and then a Martian attack sweeps in, ripping her away like it's hunting her down. Feeding, Mars sneers at him, calling him a pesky pest, then declares the whole fight was pointless. After that, Nizumo got slammed with a nightmare, only to see himself getting wounded. Suddenly, he jolts awake in the Academy's medical station, and right in front of him stands Norn Altena, the Academy's doctor. He's already been forced to live with pain that never lets up, always stuck in that hospital, and he still owes me. Altenia's crushing debt loomed over everything. Then bam! A teacher bursts into the medical room and fires off. "Altenia, how are you feeling?" Her name is Henry Var. She's the homeroom teacher for 10th grade at the Academy. Altonia snapped with rage and ordered her to use polite forms at the Academy. Then she shot back that nobody was there, until Altonia jabbed a finger at Nizumo and declared, "Yes, he's right here." She asked Nizumo how he was, and he told her he was fine, then warned her not to get so close to him. He glanced aside and told her to step back a little, and Altenia laughed it off, saying Nizumo would be fine since his chest and back only had minor bruises. Right then, the bell rang. The bell blasted, ending their classes, and Mizuma thanked them, until Henry caught him right as he was about to bolt and said she needed to talk to him. She asked, "Do you still go to that forest?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." Then she tried to make him understand just how deadly that place really is. Nizumo tells her he'll be okay, shoots out a quick apology, then bolts. And the second he's gone, Henry explodes in rage, furious that Nizumo ditched him without even listening. Because of that incident, Nizumo got shoved to the very bottom of his class, and it only got worse from there. It all kicked off with the insane power he showed in his very first year, because right from the start it was clear, abilities like that don't just happen. Every creature can unleash a whole bag of different skills, each one giving it a brand new edge. Yet Nazumi's ability got crushed, and that leaves him with nothing but trouble. But it wrecks his power hard. Yeah, he can still use objects and magic, but everything hits way weaker than it's supposed to. Everyone hit by this power pays a brutal price. There's a non-stop negative toll on them. Yet in Nizumo, it doesn't just weaken you, it crushes your physical abilities until they won't obey. Altenia warned that Nizumo slips into the forest solo every time, and always staggers back battered and injured. She thanked Henry, swearing that because of her he's starting to talk more, though his behavior still hasn't changed. She snapped back that she couldn't touch the medical side, so all she could offer was tech, and then she added. For a split second, he nearly grabbed the edge. His technique, magic, and Kai hit all at once, and by third year, some students' grades crashed down to sea level. Henry said his powers feel way beyond an ordinary student, but they still need sharpening before they reach their full height. She also clocked it instantly. His body was rock solid, his training had been brutally exhausting, and his skin was littered with scars from battles and pain. She confessed that this is why she's been thinking about quitting her job, and Henry demanded to know what she meant. Then she snapped back that being a doctor makes it unbearable to watch someone so young go through something like this. He blurted, "So my drive was all wrong." And she snapped back that he'd already hit the ceiling of what he could grow into. Then she pressed the scary question, was there anything left he could pull off by himself? Spasima Forest is the wild city home of Salmonade Academy, a deep, towering maze of trees that wraps around the arche like a living wall. All kinds of plants grow here, and both students and everyday people make their living by hunting monsters and hauling resources from the forests. But every single year, even with all that life feeding the town, at least a few people still die or vanish without a trace. About 10 years ago, Arcusum rose into the sky, and right at its heartbeat sits Salmonad Academy, with every surrounding district built around it. The academy is basically Archism's auxiliary branch in the heart of the city, while the real power, the political and administrative offices, sits up north. In the eastern part of town, a civilian area sprawls quietly, like a calm target no one's thinking about yet. And the southern stretch is packed as the city's commercial district, while the western part of the city. Inside were a bunch of craft workshops, from blacksmithing sparks to weaving threads. A roaring highway slices through every district of the city, while a thick, shadowy forest wraps around it like a living wall. From the outside, it looks like an endless ocean of trees. That's why people call it the empty forest, a neutral zone with no sides at all. And several monsters are lurking deep in the forest, right where Nazuma was putting on an all-out mock fight, swinging both hands like she was trading blows with someone right in front of her. With iron confidence, he swings his sword through the air and commits no hesitation. That man swings and lands a punch across his face, snarls that it's not enough, and the impact whips him into a roll across the ground. And right as he was about to stand up, that person immediately slammed in an attack, trying to fire off everything in one go. Nazuma is getting hammered, but then he snaps into action with instant dash and slips right past the strike. That it is straight-up magic, granting absurd acceleration so fast it feels like time blinks and you're already gone. 1 second they're nowhere, then they barrel right in front of him, launching an attack and yelling that he's too slow. Then she launches her attack, right after that Nazuma. He barely scraped past the strike. This crazy dodge technique is called the Phantom Blade, and yep, it's truly phantom. A brutal cut made from packed, dense tissue, because this attack is about to hit hard. Forged from compressed Kai, it's nearly impossible to spot ahead of time. This universal attack tears forward at terrifying speed, and the blade rockets dozens of meters the instant the sword comes out. When their blades finally screamed against each other, he snapped, "Master," and demanded if she was trying to kill him. She just smirked and said, "If I wanted you dead, I'd have done it the second you tried to run." She leans in and tells him straight up, if this were the real fight, kill or be killed, she'd end him in a heartbeat. Then his master viciously kicks him up from below, and the blow slams him into the ground. Right before she could strike, Nazimo snapped back to his spot in a flash. He jolts to his feet and drives the knife into her. Then boom, she vanishes right in front of him, and the next moment she's lifting her sword like she's about to strike. He locks eyes with him and declares, straight to his face, that it's all over for him. He finally throws up his hands and admits defeat, saying it looks like he's about to meet Shino, his secret mentor, who, before the city was even built, used to trek through those same forests to toughen her skin every single day. Nazumu's skills had him itching for another round. After their fight, he begged to face her again, but she shut him down and told him to try something else, and told him to choke down the lesson from his defeat. She even said his last attack was barely fought for, so of course she saw right through his weak spot. She said dinner was on, then barked for him to bring them something to eat. He yanks his sword free and swears he'll do anything for her. She fires back, asking if that means he'll get her every single thing she wants, and Nazimo snaps. That's absurd. She stared at him like death had a face, so he bolted before she could end him. Then Nazumu plunged into the forest to hunt for food, and his master trailed behind him in silence. She ran into Nazumu for the first time deep in a deadly patch of forest, where even the locals stayed away because that monster was brutally strong. When she spun around, the snap of a blade slicing the air grabbed her attention, and there he was, training alone. Curiosity tugged at her, and for a second she lost him in the shadows, then she spotted it. He was in awful shape. Pale as a ghost and utterly drained, his hands were raw and flaking away, and it was clear he'd pushed himself to the brink, while malnutrition kept crushing him even more. She tells him straight up there's no point training like this. Then he fires back with his reality. He can't go home until he wins respect, but every day it feels like he's doomed because his powers just won't grow. She couldn't stop wondering what brutal misery he'd been through. What kind of pain would make him gamble away his whole life just to earn our respect? Others, those dull, cloudy eyes hit her like a punch. She suddenly remembered the starving beggar she'd met on her way out of her hometown, teetering on death's edge. Still, she knew she had to shove it out of her mind. Yet watching that exact same look on someone so young hurt her to the core. Inside, everything snaps. Demonic dogs crash the scene and Nazuma panics, sprinting right back toward them, right back toward the cannibalistic, twisted versions of the normal. Dog, ASA demon may be low level, but one bite is all it takes to end you. He realized that in his weakened state, those demon dogs looked just as lethal as a dragon. After that, she slaughters every last demonic dog, then leans in and tells him, if he's truly chasing death, he better go out like a warrior. When Nazem demanded what she meant, she leaned in and said, you don't get to die until you learn how to wield that sword the right way. A year and a half had passed since she became his mistress, and now she watched him morph into a full-on monster. Phantom Blade is a skill where concentrated Kai becomes a razor-sharp slash, shooting straight at the opponent like a bullet. And yeah, it's basic, until a real master twists it into a deadliest weapon. With this skill, she wipes out any enemy, because her blade's so deadly it slices clean through even an iron pot. Nazuma's blade slices like paper, so it seems, but it actually gives way to his edge, even while his own blade stays razor-sharp and packed solid. With his power sealed tight, it's only a countdown now. He'll break free, just like it was always meant to be. Until he finally beats her, because she's sure he'll never level up at the academy thanks to his suppressed abilities, and she's already counting on that. She grabbed his attention and drilled swordsmanship into him, because letting Kai slip loose during a training fight at the academy was going to be messy. So first, he had to forge his body's strength until nobody could shove him down in real battle. Nazem's mind is already shattered to the core, so yeah, it's obvious that he's dodging reality with reckless training, and she's not buying the idea that breaking away from society is automatically bad. But once he rips free of his reality and lands in a whole new world, going back is completely out of the question. So she decided the only way forward was to help him, and she dubbed their training the escape. Even though she's convinced she's not good enough to teach Nazuma, he could finally breathe easy, knowing she'd left him every lesson she'd built over the years. And then, just as Nazuma went hunting for food, a sudden explosion ripped through the air and he froze in shock. Seeing people there felt unreal. Because magic runs on spiritual energy, it clashes with Kai, and it's been around for centuries. By the roar, he figured it wasn't one of those demon dogs. It had to be some beast-type demon, and he charged in to investigate which demon they're about to fight. And then, right on cue, Nezmu spots a whole pack of demonic bears and blurts. They don't usually fight in pairs. One of their own fur is already like a living shield, and only the toughest, highest-ranking adventurers can take one down solo. And that's why someone like him is so dangerous. To pull off something like that, you'd need at least 5 people on the move. Then the girl exploded forward straight at the demonic bear. And snaps his gaze over. Nazuma thinks that he'd seen her before and was sure she was in his course too, but she kept climbing past him, again and again. He drives the dagger straight into the demonic bear's heart through its ribcage, and drops it with a single, brutal strike. Asamo knows she's one of the top students in her class, and that's why they call her the Midnight Princess. Her hair is dark as the night sky, and her name is Iris Dina. She was deadly skilled, while across the way, another girl was setting up a magic spell to blast a demonic bear out of existence. Her name is Thelma Lime, an academy legend with sorcery so powerful it leaves even the teachers behind, and she can do it all by herself. After this, she casts the spell Wind Whirl, and the magic hits like a furious gust. He cast a Wind Whirl spell that blasted in like a razor tornado, cutting straight through his opponent, and it's classified as a mid-level technique. At the academy, they don't just know her, they call her the Bard of the Four Winds. Iris and Thelma stand at the very top of the academy, towering above everyone. Nazuma stared at her attack in awe, pure magic, no boosters, no tricks, just raw power, and then Right then, the third demon bear lunges at Thelma and Naz, snapping into the fight. I rush to save her just as the demon bear's life is slipping away. Right when they lunged to strike her, Iris snapped into action and sent the whole attack flying back. Iris has a mind-blowing gift called Media. Yeah, it's not something most people can do. Cast, the magic lets her fire spells and unleash attacks without so much as a word. Nazimo shoots forward and closes in on the demonic bear fast. With the phantom blade flashing, the demonic bear gets its head hacked off on the spot. Both of them freeze in shock. Nazem didn't get why his body moved on its own, but he only had one heartbeat to respond. The move he's using is basically the same as when he fought with his phantom blade. Only now the difference in power is huge, because his master is light years ahead. With his power sealed up tight, every move he makes comes out flimsy. And after that training brawl with the master, his body's still barely holding itself together. Then Iris strides up to him and with heartfelt gratitude, thanks him for saving her. Then she shot him a worried look and asked if he was hurt. He shook his head and said he was. While he stared at her beauty in awe, Iris smiled, thanked him, and told him that because of him, she and her friend were finally safe. Iris stepped up, introduced herself, and told him they were both in their second year at Salmona Academy. Same class, Thelma too. She introduces herself, but the second she spots his face, shyness hits hard. She ducks behind Iris and hides. Iris shot an apology, confessing she's just shy. Then Thelma admitted she's mortified by men, and Nazem shrugged like it didn't matter at all. Then Iris turned and asked. He demanded to know who he was, then claimed he looked just like another student at the academy. Nazem froze, caught off guard. To finally show who he really is because fear gnawed at him, what if they turned their backs? He didn't want to hand over his name, but that choice was already slipping out of his control. Turning this down would have been straight-up rude, and the Iris family isn't just anyone. They're one of the royal court's big founding clans, with her father serving right there. After this. Then he steps up, introduces himself, and proudly tells them he's a second-year student, right there in 10th grade. Iris said she could buy his story, but the truth smelled fishy. How did the student sitting in 10th place end up all alone, no friends, no company? Nazema was. He braced for Iris to tear into him, but she didn't, while Thelma went pale the moment she saw him. Kazuma shot back that he had no company at all, just him, completely alone. Iris and Thelma are two of the most deadly talented top students on Arkmill, where every adventurer gets ranked based on their skills. Crush those demonic monsters, clear high-level quests, fire up new research, and forge jaw-dropping inventions, and boom, your rank shoots higher. Top-tier students can climb into the elite ranks, first-class rangers, royal guard knights, or court wizards, the only magic and power the school even admits. 5 different second-year students got officially approved as the ranked picks. Tells her that nobody in their right mind would team up with someone like him, but Iris snaps back. I don't get it. Who wouldn't want a student who can survive in the forest? Then she. I demanded to know why he was totally alone in the darkest part of the forest, and he shot back that he'd come all this way just to train. He snaps at her, furious and determined, swearing he'll get stronger even if he'll never match the others, and he won't quit or die. Iris shot him an apology, but the weird feeling wouldn't leave her, and Nazemu brushed it off, said everything was okay, and apologized for. He asked her what he should call her, and she told him, just call me Iris. Then Nazemu leaned in and demanded to know what they were up to. And honestly, there are never any other students around. Iris said the guild dropped an assignment for us, like it changed everything. They stumbled on a dragon, one of those legendary monsters, and the kind of terrifying power that could only belong to the top tier of all living beings. They say it's a monster of godlike power. Back in ancient days, it ruled everything on the world, and if you somehow kill the dragon, you steal its strength. But stories like that are rare, and all we've got are whispers trapped in old historical books. Iris told them the dragon rumor can't be brushed off. There's a real chance one's lurking nearby. And then she added that dragons aren't just monsters, they're demonic beasts. And yeah, the dragon they spotted is smaller than you'd expect, but don't get comfortable. It can still unleash real danger. After that, Nazemu. He nodded and said he'd factor it in. Then Iris hit him with the truth. If that monster is really a dragon, even she can't stand against it. They asked Nazemu if he wanted the demonic bear's materials since they owed him a favor. Nazemu blinked like, I didn't think I'd get anything like this, but yeah, I want some meat. And then he tells him they're heading back toward the city, then thanks him all over again for his help. Nazemu shrugged it off, flashed a confident grin, and promised, no problem, I'll be back tomorrow. As they rode back to the city, Iris leaned in and demanded why Thelma was acting so painfully shy, only for Thelma to start explaining. It's because she heard he cheated on Lisa and keeps flirting with other women. Iris gets it instantly. He's the one everyone's been whispering about. She refuses to believe he could ever pull off something this cruel, because she just can't see that darkness in him. Thelma admits she was terrified, but Iris snaps that she needs to apologize to him the next time they meet, on the other side. She stomped back to her master's house and snapped at him for being late, then demanded to know if he'd been swayed by the opposite sex, only for Nazemu to fire back. Why are you even here? Evil, that night, Sheena was in a foul mood, and the very next day she cranked his training into a brutal double regimen, right on. While Iris curled up in the room, she couldn't stop thinking about how Nazima's blade moved, fast as lightning, and how its color looked pure, crystal clear, and see-through. Mithril's a magical metal, almost magnetized to spells, and it's the stuff armor is forged from, way stronger than steel while still staying surprisingly flexible. Her father and the sword master handed her that blade the moment she arrived, and they forged it with one secret in mind. Her magic-hungry habit of absorbing spells, engraved right into the steel, her name stamped on it forever. Silver wings of the evening star, and then, just like that, she grabs her rapier and sets it down. The magical sword, Lunar Eclipse, unleashes the deadliest magic it can ever hold. Both magic and sorcery are treated like lifelines of the soul, and they're basically siblings. But the way their power shows up hits differently, one through the sorcerer and the other through the magic itself. Magic usually feeds on a wizard's mind and they're set up in unison, but Kai taps the master's physical core instead, and those two forces clash, repelling each other every time. Her sword was built to smash that canceling power dead in its tracks, then she finally clocks it. He wasn't headed where he should be. She's charging toward the city, and she's thinking, even she wouldn't have the guts to stay in that forest. Night fell, and she knew it. Demonic beasts prowl after dark, and only trained scouts who truly know how to survive dare to stay out there. After that, she can't stop thinking about Nozomu, so she drops into a seat. I need to learn everything about him. The very next day, right around noon, Nozomu was strolling through the academy park, and most students pile into the same spot during break and hang out together. They trash him everywhere across the academy, and you can see it hit him hard. He can't shake the unease when he's surrounded by all those students. He refused to eat in the park, because even that felt better than the brutal nightmare of the school cafeteria. He's got money troubles, so he grabs whatever he can find to get by. Then that morning they doubled the training, and by the time it ended, he was left with barely any strength to even pack a real lunch. When he finally got back to the dorm, he spotted someone sitting there, right in the middle of his lonely lunch. The moment he saw her, he knew. She had to be a student of Eclose, the extra school tied to the academy that trains kids around 10 years old. He's on a mission to find kids who show real talent before most people even notice, and the school is built to sharpen those gifts from day one. Because if the students are the kids of big shots, chances are they're already insanely gifted. Nozomu froze, something about her felt off, like she was a little too short for the circle they belonged to. And then he worried she might have stepped on something by accident, so he decided, right then and there, not to leave her standing alone. He closed the distance and asked if she was okay. Then she spun around, and Nozomu couldn't shake the weird feeling of what he saw. He locks eyes and instantly feels like he's seen her before, like she belongs to his past. Then he blurts out if she's dressed for something and what she's doing here. She nods and tells him, during lunch break I was playing with my shadow, and right after that They spotted a black cat perched in the tree and asked if it was her bracelet. She shot back that it was hers, but she had no idea why Shadow grabbed it and scaled the whole way to the very top. Then the girl orders Shadow to hand over the bracelet, and right as Nozomu's caught up in staring, thinking how freakishly tall the tree is and how silky smooth the wood feels, he gets derailed mid-thought. He figures that even he'd struggle to climb a tree like that, because out in the forest, knowing how to save yourself can mean everything. He fights monsters like a pro, by scaling the toughest trees, and lucky for him, he climbs them perfectly. Then he demands the cat hand back the bracelet he stole, but the cat leaps straight at his face and starts clawing him to pieces. He lunges to wipe the shadow away, but his hand slips. Nozomu's there, and he slices his finger open, blood blooming as he does. Claws, suddenly, the bread slips from Nozomu's pocket and thunks onto the ground as. Meanwhile, Shadow straps the girl's bracelet around his neck like a collar, and then Shadow teased him, and instant rage exploded when he realized what happened to his lunch. They scrapped over the bracelet, the girl blurting out, "Are you okay?" And then, out of nowhere, the branch snaps in two, then Nozomu crashes down hard onto the ground. But a dark shadow crawls over the girl's hands. She shot him a worried look and asked if he was okay, and he nodded back that he was fine. Then Nozomu turned to her and asked whether the bracelet was okay, and she nodded, confirming it was true, then thanked him for the help, only for him to wave it off like it was nothing. Then she jumped into the introduction. She popped her head in and introduced herself as Similiana, then told everyone to call her Samia. So when Nozomu stepped up and asked if he could use the name, she just shrugged and said, "Sure, that's fine." Nozomu couldn't believe it. She was thrilled he'd helped her, because for the first time in ages, someone actually thanked him. She flashes him a smile, and the moment he locks eyes with her, joy surges through his chest. Right after that, the bell BLARED and Nozomu snapped, "Hurry up or you'll be late." Samia nodded, took off in a rush, and thanked him again before disappearing back. Once she was gone, Nozomu realized he'd probably blown lunch, but it didn't even sting. Then their teacher broke down ritual magic for them, while he was also lecturing the other students at the same time. Nozomu crouched in the corner, staring into the shadows like he was waiting for something to snap. He whips out a magical altar, demands they build one of their own, and then he grabs his tools and does it too. He broke down exactly how to use the altar and unleashed all kinds of spells through it. It all boils down to how powerful the mage's magic really is. And so Nozomu has no clue what it's like to wield magic. Mars is just plain lucky. He's ridiculously skilled in both Kai and magic. Getting them at the same time is under 1 in 100, and actually using both together is even more unlikely. Because his powers are sealed tight, Nozomu can't join the magic lectures, so he's stuck watching the whole class from the sidelines like it's tormenting him. Instead, he just shows up to classes for show and stops getting grades in the course. Because the academy is laser-focused on careers, and he's not the only one out there building a future in this field. The school throws extra perks at its top students, because the more talented they are, the more rewards they unlock. Top-ranked students get the best breaks, and even adventurers hand them stronger gear the moment they dive into assignments. Then Nozomu spots Iris across the training grounds, and the second he locks eyes with her, he realizes what's about to be in front of her, right there, waiting. She spots Lisa, right there, charging into a fight she's about to start. The gap between the higher and lower classes was huge, and so were the training spots. He was a second-year ranked 10th, and he prayed he'd never cross paths with her. It's been more than a year since he last saw her, and still, back when they swore they'd build a shared future together. The moment the fight kicks off, Lisa darts up to Iris in a flash. She snaps a spell into place and fires off ghostly orbs, countering Lisa hard, and then Lisa keeps hammering her with relentless attacks until Iris blocks every phantom bullet she fires, plants her feet, and while Lisa keeps the pressure up, it lunges for her, and she fights back with sheer will, tearing against that monstrous, suffocating inertia. She slips through anything with pure instinct, then fires off a strike so precise it turns deadly in an instant. Lisa then came at Iris again and again, flashing both blades in a dual-wield frenzy, and Nozomu could only watch it unfold. Lisa didn't just win, she absolutely crushed that fight, total domination. Lisa gripped the sword with total confidence, and that's when Nozomu's curiosity ignited. Would Iris stand a chance against her? Suddenly, Lisa jerks aside and swerves past Iris's magical blast, only for it to do 0 damage. Iris had flipped the whole game. I couldn't even believe she could pull off her abilities without a single cast. That she could swing a sword and still whip out magic at the exact same time. Then Iris whips her legs into chains, and at the exact same time she blinds her. Even with the black fog choking the air, Liz drives back every single attack. Keep moving non-stop, one after another. Don't ever take a step that could trigger an attack. Raging winds tore through the arena, and right in the middle of the attack, they blasted out eerie ghost-like images. The battlefield was roaring with fury. Then, out of nowhere, Lisa threw in the towel and retreated. Then Lisa slams her swords together, ignites her magic, and rockets straight into the fight. That magic wasn't anything. Yeah, not even close, and I swear it did. The most powerful wizards in the world could unleash. And it hit almost as hard as Thelma's whirlwind. Iris snaps into a counterattack with her deadliest move, slamming it into Lisa's magic and stopping it cold. When Nozomu saw her strike, his whole body buzzed, because that attack felt absolutely terrifying. Lisa demanded to know how she could possibly be this strong. They pushed her for a timeline, asking how long she'd been preparing for the attack, and Iris snapped back that it started from the very first moment of their clash. Because her outbursts were impossible to predict, she ended up stuck longer than she expected, forcing herself to lock in and focus through every chaos. Keep your eyes on the fight. Then Lisa smirked, telling him she'd take that as a compliment. When Lisa tried to leave, Iris's mind snapped into place. She figured Lisa was Nozomu's old flame, and that now she was dating his buddy, Ken Nozomu. She barely knows them, and she's got 0 patience for anyone who calls people fools for judging others they've never even met. If she'd unleashed this attack sooner, the whole fight would have been way easier. It usually takes her around 10 seconds to pull off that attack, but she watched Nozomu and realized he didn't waste even 1 second. After that, Iris spots Nozomu across the way and frantically waves, only for him to completely ignore her and stride off. She glances back, totally thrown off. Then Thelma thrusts a potion into Iris's hands, and Iris doesn't hesitate as she gulps it down, thanking her the whole time. Iris usually hangs back on the sidelines while her classmates spar, and she always ends up doing this. She loved every second of it, and it quickly turned into a habit. She swore watching other people fight would teach her something. Iris swept her gaze to the other side of the training hall when Alma called out, asking if everything was fine. Iris snapped her head around and said, she insisted it was nothing. But the second she saw her classmates square off, all she could think about was how Nozomu looked as he walked. Then Iris turns to Felma and asks, can I ask you something? And when Felma snaps back, what exactly? The tension spikes. Iris tells everyone this is all about Nozomu's skills. Meanwhile, Nozoma bolted out of the training hall. He couldn't stop replaying it. Why Lisa walked out on him, why he kept forcing himself to choke down this agony, and why the pain wouldn't let him break free and move on. He didn't have a single reason to deserve this. He'd finally shown up at the academy after 2 brutal weeks of fights with his father, and his choice twisted into a warped reality where pain. Something twisted in his chest, forcing him to retreat and lock himself away from the world. Yet even then, no matter how hard he tried, he still managed to make progress. It was all laid out, and he begged Lisa to tell him where it all went wrong. But she only stared at him with pure disgust. So he clenched his teeth and pushed himself to train harder, just to smother that crushing feeling of not being good enough. Right after that, Nozoma kept walking and spiraling over the same thought. Then Samia suddenly stepped out of nowhere in front of him. As she lunged to catch her cat, she tripped hard mid-chase, and when she went down, right as she's about to topple, Nozomu rockets in and snatches her before she hits the ground. She tells them her cat bolted during class, so she's been chasing it non-stop, and when Nozomu says he's headed out, Samia snaps, hold up, can I talk to you for a minute? And asks if she can. She wants to see him again tomorrow. Nozomu asked what she meant, and she blurted out that she needs to talk to him and thank him for the kindness and help he gave her. Hearing that, Nozomu's chest tightens, because for the first time in ages, someone's inviting him out with zero plans to laugh at him. But he refused to let her get the same cold treatment, and once school ended, he was dragged into training with the master, so Mia gets. Rage flared in him as he demanded, so that means no. They said they'd meet tomorrow at lunch, but even after that, Nozomu still had more to spill to her. And just like that, she vanishes from his sight in a blink. At night, she hurled herself into practicing her magic spell, yet it just wouldn't work. She was trapped under a spell, just like it had to be, and she couldn't stop herself from wondering why she could. Somia couldn't shake the feeling she'd never match her sister, and something felt seriously off. Then Iris burst onto the scene and blurted out to Somia that things are going amazingly. Now they can recognize 6 elements, and get this. Earth, fire, and earth are actually the same thing. Air, wind, and water feel like everyday stuff, but light and darkness, those are the rare, world-shaking exceptions. Iris leaned in and asked if she had trouble with the spell. She shook her head, saying it was light magic. So Iris fired off the same spell herself and called it a light spell, known as. Iris breaks down exactly how this spell works, and Somi practically loses it like, you're incredible. After a while of non-stop practice, Iris leaned in and said she'd noticed she's been looking way happier lately, then asked if something good happened to her recently. Somia told Iris she'd just met someone lately, and Iris fired off the question, who was it? Somia tells him, you look sad but you're kind, then spills the story of how he helped her, because Somia already knows. He dodges talking to everyone, but she can see through it. He's a genuinely good guy. Samia asked how Iris was doing, and Iris said she'd just met someone interesting. Then she teased that Nozomu's face was stuck like that because of Lisa, and that he looked. It shattered. Later, Iris tells Samia they got hit out of nowhere during the war. Mission, then the stranger materialized out of thin air and carved the monster clean in half in one blazing second, and Samia couldn't help but stare in shock. Iris hears that she's convinced someone out there is better than her sister, and then Iris snaps back, telling her to go to sleep since it's already way too late. Samia argues that she still wants to talk more about that mystery person, but Iris. If she doesn't rest, she'll never grow bigger and stronger like she should, and she also. He tells her she doesn't really know him yet, so they'll save the new friend talk for later. Then Samia heads back to her room. Iris still pictured herself as little, but Somia had come early, so early that their sick mother didn't make it, dying during the pregnancy. After her mother died, she was left holding the weight of raising Samia by herself. And by the time Samia turned 6, she knew with absolute certainty that this was her calling. She threw herself into fencing day after day, mowing down every obstacle just to prove she could meet her family's expectations, pushing toward pure mastery, raw strength, and control of the blade, and she's diving deep into witchcraft, and right now, she's the absolute best in her entire class. She clawed her way to this position, pouring every last ounce of strength into getting here. She's determined to dig up the truth behind why everyone's so hung up on Nozomu, and why Lisa dumped him in the first place. When a quarrel erupted, She knew from experience that he'd snap into action and fight to change things. She's desperate to uncover what kind of training he went through, because that attack looks impossible. The very next day, during the break, Samia caught up with Nozomu, and without wasting a second, he asked if her sister was studying at the academy, then tossed out that he was in his second year too. Samia leaned in and asked, how? Nozomu's academy life is a mess, so he shows her a black tag and admits he's the lowest rank. Then she shoots back, that's just you're not like your sister, and the sentence hangs there like a warning. She's the best at everything, and Nozomu can't miss that raw immaturity blazing in her eyes, because the same mess sits in his own. He gets it in that instant. Samia is strong. Nozomu presses her about the bracelet, and she explains it's a family heirloom, handed down for generations, worn to remind them that their hearts are still tied together. And yeah, it's also a reminder that someday, all of them will find their way back to each other. She said her sister handed it to her last year on her birthday, and ever since, it's been proof that no matter what storms hit, they'll always stay connected. As they kept chatting about the topic, suddenly Iris spots Nozomu and Samia standing together, and she strides right up to them. Nozomu's jaw dropped when he saw her, just as Iris spun the words out, saying, she blurted that she was shocked, because it was the very same new friend her sister kept talking about, and Samia was just as stunned, firing off a question. Wait, do you know who Nozomu is? Meanwhile, Nozomu's confusion only grows, so Samia leans in and tells him point-blank that her last name is Franchild. Nozomu clocked the same black hair on them and immediately knew, because her bracelet wasn't meant for ordinary people. He'd been dating Samia for a while, so it stung that he hadn't noticed the way they looked alike. Rage boiled in his chest. Then Iris invited him to lunch, and he couldn't even figure out what was happening. He's well aware that Iris has a stunning face, backs it up with rock-solid reliability, and always steps in to help people who need it. So with every other student practically worshipping her, he just can't find the right words. No reason at all for her to drag him to lunch. If they'd been anywhere busier, that rumor would have sprinted through the whole school in minutes. So when Nozomu bowed his head, he apologized and said he had to turn it down. But Samia drags him into an eat-together. Nozomu hesitates to jump in, and Iris leans in like, so, you don't like open spaces? He threw out an apology, admitting it makes him uneasy when crowds swarm around, and Samia immediately said, then let's grab food there, while Iris chimed in that she's totally fine eating somewhere calm and quiet. After it all went silent, Nozomu turned to her friend Thelma and asked her to join. Then Thelma answered. Professor Jihad yanked her into his office, and Director Salman made sure to keep an account on her. Atomi, Jehed Rondell stood on the very front lines, hacking through a war against demons, and everyone agrees he's one of the deadliest swordsmen alive. 20 years back, a massive demon migration tore through Arkmill. Hundreds of thousands of people were slaughtered, and only a wave of terrified refugees made it to neighboring lands to survive. For the first time ever, every nation banded together and teamed up to crush the invasion. Because the demons, rampage tore through the land and left it badly broken. Many countries have crumbled, and with whole nations gone, a tidal wave of refugees surged into the streets of the struggling lands. And then, so because of it, country after country erupted in chaos, swallowing entire populations in blood and loss. Then they finally decided. So they did the only thing that made sense. Built a safe place for refugees to stay while they forged fresh troops for the next invasion. And that's how they created an academy called Salmanata. Then Iris tells him, don't stress about Thelma, and Nozomu spots a cute dog sticker on her bag. His eyes go wide in surprise. Iris demanded to know what was going on, and he snapped back that he'd stumbled on something totally unexpected, while Samia said her sister adores dogs, but she's convinced cats are way cuter. After that, Iris declared that dogs were way cuter, and Nozomu just stood there, totally clueless about what was going on. Samia swore cats are the best, but Iris pushed back, saying dogs are so cute she just wants to run up and hug every one of them. Samia tells her to look at Shadow, and the second she starts to pet him, he bursts into a purr, making the cutest little sound ever. As they kept bickering, Nozomu's energy started to drain fast. Right after that, Samia cut into their talk and demanded to know how they'd even met. Iris snaps that Nozomu sliced the demon bear in under a second, and Samia's jaw drops as she hears that. They dug into the whole story, and Iris said, thanks to Nozomu, Fel lived, but Nozomu brushed it off fast, insisting, that's not true. Then he admitted the real reason. Because his powers were suppressed, he was the very lowest-ranked student in the school. Iris couldn't help it. She said it was weird that, even with abilities like that, Nozomu laid it all out, why he's stuck in the lowest class. That attack is way too dangerous for the academy, and because his magic is so weak, he only gets one shot. She pressed him on why he never joined any group, and he snapped back that nobody wanted to team up with him. She pressed, asking if it was because his powers were buried deep inside him, and he answered plain and certain, yes. She tells him he doesn't have to be some powerhouse to join the party. Just his connection to the opossum forest will rocket him straight up the priority list. And then she says, she knew he'd slept out in the forest all night, and she's sure this isn't a place for someone who can't handle the wild. He stumbled around acting all awkward, but the truth hits harder. He spent the whole night with Shino. This forest has a rare safe haven, an area so protected that even a dragon-level adventure can breathe here. Nozomu's ended up alone in the forest at night more than once, because Shino has straight-up driven him out there when it's dark. Iris pressed him, why didn't he throw a party? Was it because things blew up with Lisa, or because the students were out for blood? Then it all hits him at once. Every awful memory crashes back, and he starts to, fuming over it, knows. Then Iris snaps in, insisting he's got the wrong idea because she doesn't even know the real truth behind that fight. Samu jolts up, begs them to forgive him, apologizes to Samia, then declares he'll go first. As he storms out, Iris pulls Samia aside and tells her all about. Every rumor about Nozomu was flying around, but she didn't care. She just wanted to get to know him better, face to face. Because he tore through the fight to save her friend with a move she'd never seen. And then she even won, too. I had to ask about the rumors, and Iris just shrugged like, yeah, she could have said that. She's spiraling, sure she messed up, so Samia leans in and tells her, next time, go apologize to Nozomu. Meanwhile, Nozomu figures he's finally learned how to slip out of reality without even flinching. He's desperate to go back and find out what she was trying to say, but first he has to drown out the hurt by throwing himself into training. Lisa wasn't the only one who pulled away from Nozomu. Once the rumors hit, almost all his friends slammed the brakes and ditched him. And as he walked past, he spotted Lisa scarfing down food with her friends, and the moment she clocked him, her expression turned icy. She stood frozen, staring like she'd just seen a ghost. Then her friends spun around, and the second their eyes landed, they hit the exact same reaction. Nozomu says, so much time has gone by, and then Lee cuts in, because somehow he's got the updates. Don't act like you two are close. Her name is Camilla Vavet Tucknose, and she's Lisa's very first friend since she walked into the academy. Lisa was also Nozomu's friend, but the second rumors started flying, she yanked away from him like he'd burned her. Then she locked eyes with him, gave him a chilling look, and demanded to know what he wanted. Nozomu kept fighting to prove his innocence and clear the misunderstanding, but everyone brushed him off, until his heart finally turned to ice. He asked how she was doing, and she just stared back and said, "Hey." That chilling look screamed, "Don't come a step closer, stay out of my sight," and those words clutched at his heart like a blade. A broken heart, then Lisa scrambles back up and says, if he's not going anywhere then. She'll slip away somewhere else after she's done, and as soon as she leaves, Camilla drives a punch into his stomach and fires off. Do you? He totally misses how crushed Lisa is. Then she snaps that he's nothing but a traitor and an idiot. After that, everyone clears out. Yet before they walk away, they stare at him like he's already lost, and it's nothing but pity. After that shock, Nozomu bolts through the forest, sprinting like his life depends on it. That dark desire finally faded away, until running into Lisa out of nowhere slammed everything right back into place. He shoved those feelings down deep, then after a quick sprint he checked the compass and the trail drags him deeper into the forest, and there are tons. Demonic beasts are tearing through the forest, and it's the first time anything has gone after his crew like this. Deep in the forest, demons lurked in every direction, and he could either slip into hiding for a bit or build himself a shelter and wait out the fog until it finally broke. Right as he neared the source, a brutal surge of power ripped through him like lightning. He stared in shock at what was unfolding, his mind spinning with questions, and somehow it felt like he wasn't even really there. Suddenly, Alakazam feels a chilling stare from overhead, then spots a giant looming above. A dragon is circling right over his head, watching his every move. With an astonishing presence and the full force of absolute power, like my T is a creature that should have disappeared from history, and somehow it's still here, legendary and alive. The dragon starts its descent, and Nozomu breaks into a full sprint to get away before it catches him. The moment the dragon hits the ground, the earth rips open and splinters under its weight. Nozomu gets slammed by the shockwave, scrambles back on his feet, and realizes he has to sprint right now. He hurls a bunch of smoke grenades in the forest, then vanishes into the chaos to get away. Monsters closed in, but he vanished through the chaos, using smoke like a smokescreen to slip away. His goal was simple: chase the light until it led him right there. Suddenly, the dragon ripped the silence apart with a bone-shaking roar. And the raw power whips it away, swallowed up in the smoke. What's gonna cover it? With a snap from his jaws, then just like that in a moment, the second Nozomu found himself floating in midair. Every sound vanished as if the world went silent. The moment the dragon hit that hill, it blasted straight into a smoking crater. That could fit the whole of Salmonati Academy with room to spare. Then he slams to the ground, cracks open a potion, and chugs it down to refill every ounce of strength. The dragon is about to unleash something insane, spirit magic, and it is. Spirit magic hits different from the stuff non-spirits use, and it doesn't need to be processed anywhere else. So it snaps into action the instant the spirit decides to fire off that magic. Compared to other magic types, spiritual magic blasts into action way faster. Nozomu scrambles to defend himself, but the attack hits with brutal force, and he can't hold off it. A shadowy dragon creeps closer and looms over him as he lies helpless on the ground. He lunges to his feet, but the dragon swats him aside with a crushing hand, and it slams into the boulder. He crumpled on the ground half dead, life strobing before his eyes, and even in his final moments, he still swears he'll back Lisa's dream. Even though his mistress is rude, he can still feel the kindness underneath everything. His teachers, Henry and Norin, looked after him, while Iris tried. She tried to prove she wouldn't judge someone just because of gossip, but he bolted like the coward he was. He's convinced that when it matters most, there's nothing he can do. Right as the dragon lunges to strike, his master snatches him out of danger and snaps, "What are you doing?" His master never lost. He'd steamroll every monster that was too terrifying for him to handle alone. But she never imagined she'd face the Dragon King. At her age, he was basically a legend. She blurts out that he's Tiamat, and that his own kind chained him in the dark 5,000 years ago for devouring them. Tiamat even devoured her own kin, vanished from the earth the moment she got sealed, and she doesn't say a single word after. Nozomu swears he's cursed as he runs into a divine being, and right after that, the coughing hits hard. She spots the blood and panics, wondering if his organs got wrecked. Then she shouts for him to run, but Nozomu fires back, asking what she'll do. She told him they couldn't keep going together, and to bolt as far away as he possibly could. Then Chino unsheathes the phantom blade and swings it straight at Tiamat. It zeroes in on his legs, and she's fuming that it hasn't even taken a real bite. Meanwhile, Tiamat surges with spiritual magic, then hurls it straight at her target. With a single slash, she carved through 5 beams of light, then crushed another 10, like she was cutting the sky itself. Rays rained down, then she tore through 20 light beams with a savage strike. But the bright waves kept pouring in, and the dragon's assault still wouldn't quit. She had no hands left, so she grabbed the sword's sheath and fought with it, until the light rays' power finally surged back into motion. The light rays it could snuff with a single strike started to drop, just like that, and the count kept falling. Then the decline hit hard, and sudden exhaustion started ripping through him. She dug her heels in. No matter how sharp she looked, she couldn't bring herself to beat Tiamat, and fury burned as she blamed herself for caving in the forest instead of training. She kept telling herself she was worthless, worse even than the terrible student she couldn't stand. Her vision kept fading, and she realized this was it, she was probably dying. Her heart felt hollow, but you could still tell she was secretly loving every moment with her foolish student, more than she'd ever admit. Suddenly, Nozomu yells her name from behind. She whips around in shock and tells him to hurry. Then they scatter and bolt. Tiamat twists the attack's path straight toward Nozomu, and right as the strike closes in. Right at the last second, Shino flips the Kai ability on, and that burst of light obliterates everything in its path. To stop the attack, she shoves Kai underground, and he bursts up beneath the enemy, then snatches him into the air and obliterates him with his power. Kaya's power, out of all of Shino's tricks, this one hits the hardest and stretches the farthest. But after Kaya's sudden exhaustion, her power just. Tamit's strike slams into Nozomu, blasts him skyward, and sends him crashing down hard. Solid ground and blood from his own vomit. Then, out of nowhere, his body temperature began to skyrocket. Death's grip slammed into him, sharper, worse than every attack before, and the bleeding drained his strength until his brain started to fail. And then it hit him. Every ounce of strength vanished, and even the memories slipped out of reach under a brutal new reality. Refusing to die supercharged him, and the cold, frozen ice inside his heart started to melt. He refused to let it die, and he refused to surrender that burning need to set it alight. The final breath leaving his body in a flash of light, so it never fades away. A burning need to live detonated like a bomb inside his chest. Now the whole world fades out. Nozomu's focus skyrockets, rising higher, and it pushed him to the edge, stretched time, until every second felt louder. So now he's left wondering why he's always been so painfully slow. And it looks like his whole body is locked in metal chains, and that crushes every chance for him too. Then out of nowhere, invisible chains snapped tight around him, yanking him back in an instant, like they'd never stopped. Then he finally caught sight of him, and the moment he did, he lunged for those chains and rips free of their grip. But no matter how hard he tries, those bonds won't give. Those gleaming metal chains popped into view like a magic trick, and the thought that they'd come from nowhere was a lie his mind invented. But he recognized those chains instantly, and he was 100% sure he'd rip himself free. The dragon unleashes a violent burst of energy straight at Nozomu. But with that brutal burst of acceleration, the dragon wipes Nozomu from view for just a heartbeat. Nozomu snatches his katana and shifts into fight-ready mode. For the phantom blade strike, Kai got crushed down until he turned razor-thin, so sharp he looked like a single hair. He lunged like the sword's own swing, but the blade still failed to bite through the steel. Your cornea's in the crosshairs, because even though this dragon is a spiritual being, it still has a real physical body, and if someone targets one of its senses, he's doing it to keep it safe. And once it's threatened, its defenses kick in with the same instinctive fury humans and animals use to survive. Then Tiamat slammed into the earth with a force so brutal it ripped open the world and triggered a devastating earthquake. But right then the ground gave way under his feet, like the world just ripped open, and something new started to rise. Under him yawned an underground cave. Until then, Nozomu couldn't move freely because the tremors shook the earth. But when he finally landed, he braced and protected himself from the impact. Tiamat ruled the spirits as their king, commanding mind-blowing magic that moved like spiritual power. Before Nozomu could even take 3 steps, Tiamat erupted into a destructive chant meant to obliterate him. Right as Tiamat kicks off the attack, Shino wastes 0 time. He fires the light destroyer straight away, and Nozomu finally shatters free of those shackles that had been smothering his powers. Rushed forward at full speed, Shino's light destroyer took the hit for Nozomu, deflecting the impact around him and bending the light beams aside, carving out the twisting path between Nozomu and Tiamat. He surged forward so fast, even Shino couldn't believe her eyes. They say even a dragon's breath counts as holy spiritual magic, so turns out it used to kick on without any magical circles or spell chants, until the dragon got fed up with a weak person's resistance, snapped, and lost control. He vowed to shatter the world that held him captive, so Tiamat dumped every last drop of his power into his 5 colors. Wings, and then, just like TM, it stacked power, pulse by pulse, until the energy was ready to explode. A beam of light slammed down from the sky onto Tiamat, shattering his spell to pieces. The world was built from the start to cage Tiamat, and everyone. Every time the dragon drifted off its route, a mechanism snapped into action and smothered those forces. Tiamat, the one who got drained by that sealing process, looked just like a level S adventurer. Shino cheers Nozomu on, and then, right when it matters, he whips out the phantom blade and strikes. Tiamat's throat was right there. He slid the blade into the scales and hauled it tighter. The blade's hidden payload detonated inside his throat, and without hesitation he lunged forward, swinging his sword like some invisible path had been drawn for him. He slammed the blade right into bearskin, and with the first hit still echoing, he whipped his body around again in a deadly spin. Then he drives the dagger straight into Tiamat's throat, hard enough to make her start to. Lets out a brutal roar of pain, even though he's already hurt. The great dragon still hadn't been beaten, and with a roar that rattled the earth he thrashed and tried, helplessly, to shake off the Nozomu. Using every last ounce of strength, he yanked the sword jammed inside the dragon's body, locked in on the key clutched in his right hand, and refused to let go. Nozomu. Then he unleashes the light destroyer, blasting out a roaring stream of ki from the attack sword Nozamus like a top-tier magical nuke. Then they ripped the dragon's head clean off and blasted it away with the package. Nerves rattled inside him. Then the dragon finally received. It goes down, and its whole body crumbles into ash. Nozomu crumples to the ground, staring at the spirit that just slipped out of Tiamat's body. Then, out of nowhere, a spirit barges into Nozomu's body. And when he finally cracks his eyes open, he sees. Lands in a totally unfamiliar place, like the world just flipped under their feet. Steel chains slam him in place. Then he jerks his gaze downward, and still feels the dragon's stare lingering on him, like it refuses to be forgotten. He glances at Tiamat, and in that same breath they both The moment their eyes locked, he couldn't shake the feeling it was all a dream. But when he finally snapped awake, he met his master's gaze. A stranger's face loomed in front of him, and fear hit him like a shock. She tells him she's been nursing his wounds for 3 long days, and the shock hits him hard. It felt like only 10 minutes, but 3 full days had actually gone by since his showdown with. There's nothing in this room but the bare essentials for everyday life. Just him, recuperating inside his master's cabin. He stares at the bandaged wounds, catches that sharp bite of medicine in the air, blurts out an apology, and thanks her for treating him. Then she tells him she was just worried sick. Then he leaned in and asked how she was holding up, whether she had any injuries, and she said. She told him she was totally fine and not to worry, then leaned in and said she had a few things she needed to tell him about his current condition. Simo stared at her grim expression and said, straight-faced, I get it. Then she tells him the truth. He's crushed Tiamat in the sealed world, and it's real. Dragons forged this world to trap the King Dragon of Destruction and keep the apocalypse locked away. He swore he'd crushed Tiamat himself, and for the first time in hundreds of years, he finally forged the path to becoming a dragon hunter. They're the heirs of terrifying power. Some whip out spells that no known magic can even explain, and others wake up with superhuman strength. The last time anyone saw them was 300 years ago, so everyone swears they're gone for good, and Nazem still remembers them. He replays the instant he crushed Tiamat in his mind, and then it hits him. Was he really a dragon slayer or just pretending? Shino grabbed his katana, told him she had to check something, then launched into an all-out attack. Right as they were about to smash him, he snapped his guard up and deflected the blow. What absolutely blew him away. She demanded to know what happened, and her answer hit like a punch. Once he became a dragon hunter, his body got insanely stronger. He said that sure, his strength had grown, but it didn't feel like he got that much stronger because of what happened next. About being forced to suppress his powers. Then she leaned in and asked if he could finally be freed. His power snaps him away from the past, so when he tries to smash it, the chains suddenly reappear in front of her, and she can finally see them. She asked him what he'd do, but Nazem totally missed the question. Then she leaned in and told him that the power he'd been given is monstrous, because that kind of power always pulls in trouble. She said that once it kicks off, it won't stop ever. She leaned in and asked again what he wanted to do next. He hesitates before answering, and his master snaps. No reason to chase strength past where you stand right now. Even if he goes all in for the girl he loves, she's done with him. She doesn't feel the same, not anymore. She even said it straight. He'd only get it right if he'd used a phantom blade on a wooden dummy. No one near him ever loosened their grip, and if he can master the fencing she taught, he won't tumble all the way to rock bottom. She said his downfall happened because he can't face reality. He refuses to let go. Even as he fought back against every rejection, loneliness and the missing support only forged him into someone stronger. What made him shatter his own oath and turn that very moment into the reason he had to run? He told them he stayed in the academy for Lisa alone, shut out everything else, and poured all his focus into fencing. That was the whole truth. The way he never even tried to track down the one person at the heart of all his problems tells you exactly that. Shino told everyone, I can't see the present, I'm trapped in the past. But in the end, he'll be forced to choose. And with his injuries flaring, she begs him to stay in her cabin just one more day to rest. She confessed she'd kept one secret from him, and as he frantically guessed what it was, she pulls him into a tight hug and whispers that he's finally back, like she couldn't stop herself from saying it. He tells him, you fought like a beast, and those words hit so hard that he breaks down and starts crying. He noticed the dark circles under her eyes, and her breathing came out a little shaky. He couldn't stop wondering, did he owe her everything after she'd taken care of him this whole time? That he came back, then out of nowhere, sleep crashes over him. As soon as he passed out, Shino leaned in and couldn't believe Nazemu was about to become the first dragon hunter in centuries. Then she sent him off with a sweet, heartfelt good night. Both his body and his mind needed to shut down and recharge. Shino was never born with it. Not on the continent of Arkmal. She lived in a Far East island nation, the second daughter of the Makagura fencing school's head, and even then people snickered at her for picking up a sword despite. Even though she was a woman, her father raised her just the way she dreamed. Her mother backed her goals without question, and her older sister loved her to the moon and always stood guard beside her. Every one of her battles ended in victory. People erupted in praise for her legendary military service. Then Shino's sister introduced her to a young man who was. She became his student, and right after they first met, she felt it. Love was blooming between them. Once they both admitted their feelings, they took the next step and got engaged. She came from an influential family, wielded power nobody could match, and even had a golden marriage proposal waiting for her. So she sat at the absolute peak of happiness. At their wedding in Chino, someone screamed a baseless accusation of cheating and the whole place erupted, because the proof they waved was totally false. At first, Chino swore she was innocent, but nobody bought it, and then a year later she finally uncovered who'd really set her up. It was her favorite sister, and she did it purely out of jealousy, seething at her happiness. 3 days later, Chino tore away from the Makagura family, leaving everything behind with. She didn't say a single word. She stormed out, vanished from the country, left it all behind on that island, and then later sailed right back for the island. Stormed his way into the Spasm forest, hunting peace and hiding alone from the world. Chino told everyone that she and Nazimo are basically the same kind of soul. But now exhausted Kai won't bounce back. Everything is crumbling one piece at a time. They call it the deadly sleep. Once it sinks in, it drains your life force day by day until you finally drop dead. Only a handful of people have ever crawled back from fatal sleep, but nobody's cracked a real cure yet. She told him she wanted to talk to him way more, because all she'd done with him so far was teach him swordsmanship. But before that, she had one last thing to say. At that moment, she'll dig deep and push it all the way to the end. No backing out. And then Nazimo says her master's medicine boosts natural healing, not some fake potion that. He heals instantly, and then he drops another bomb. His hostess has been acting weird lately, like she's never cared a bit until now, she's been. They ride with him to the academy, and as they hit the city gates, his master is there. She told him she'd never even set foot in the city of Al-Qasim, and Nazim lit up, asking if she wanted him to show her around. But she hesitated, worried his commitments would get in the way, and then she reminded him that he had missed. With an injury sidelining him, he missed class after class, so Nozomo snapped back that they had to hurry, since they were stuck roaming the city anyway. That tire was packed with all kinds of street-sold goods, and Nazmu stared at it, hit with the jolt that he used to be just like those people, back when he first arrived. Meanwhile, they burst up to Salmonati Academy, and Shino leans in to tell him. She promises she'll come back to the forest. Then Nazem thanks her, and suddenly he hears a bell ring. He's on edge, and Shino tells him not to spiral. He missed a week, so what's to worry about? Then she tells him to meet her at her cabin after classes. Because she had so much she couldn't wait to tell him, Nazima blurted, shocked. If there was anything else she wanted to say, she smiled and said they'd talk when the time was right, but for now. Nazumu bolted to class, and Shino looked him over like, I'll catch up. After this, I'm gonna wander the city a little. Salmonata's final exam hits you with both a written test and a practical one, and if you fail, they drop you to lower classes or cut you loose entirely. For Nazimo, who's usually stuck with low grades, this was a huge problem. Nazim's class teacher never once questioned why he kept disappearing without explanation, and the other students were convinced there was nothing more to it. Nobody dared bring it up, and the morning classes just shut down right there. During lunch break, Professor Amri yanked him aside and demanded answers for his missed days, and Nazima quickly snapped back that it's really no big deal. She nodded along, then zeroed in when he admitted the monster attack left him hurt, asking which beast did it, and he snapped back that it was a rabid bear. Then she leaned in again. Was it one of the three? The bad bear brothers and sisters pressed on, and he shot back, yeah. The moment she heard that, she stared him down like a threat, then promptly dozed off. Osamu's face was slick with sweat. She snapped, how's that injury? And he admitted he'd been stuck in bed with a fever for days, but he was finally starting to feel better. Then she pressed him on why he never told her he'd been missing or bothered to contact the academy. Asimu blurted that things were even worse than he expected, that his classmates weren't backing him at all, and rage and heartbreak twisted in his chest, because the lies were hurting him. But he couldn't bring himself to tell her the truth. What if she started crying? Nazim presses him hard, asking if he really doesn't trust her, and if he thinks she's unreliable and completely incompetent. He came back and demanded why she thought that. Then she smiled, said she knows he's lying, and closed the distance. She orders him to talk to her. Meanwhile, Nazmu realizes she's about to. Dangerous beauty, she could hook men without even lifting a finger, totally clueless about the power in her smile, and Naz was branded as pure evil. Samia cuts right to it and asks Iris if she finally cleared up the misunderstanding with Nazimo, while Telma has no clue what's even going on. Iris answered, something happened between me and Nazimo, and Thelma instantly clocked that too. She's been missing from lunch and skipping out after school lately, so I finally asked if that's why she vanished. Then Iris told me she'd been waiting for him by the school, only to find out. For days, Iris hadn't shown up, So Thelma stared at her and realized Dee never cared this hard about any boy student. And then, right when Iris was gearing up to get ready for class, Namia waved her over and demanded to know if she could bring Nazima along to her birthday. Iris claimed it was a private party, but Samia shot back that Nazim is her friend, and she wants to thank him for his kindness, so she said. Nazmu's smile looks lonely, and she has no clue what happened to him, but all she wants is to get her friends back. Iris smiled, even if it was just a little, and told him he was right. She wanted her friends smiling too. At first, she was only feeding her curiosity, but when she saw even some of what he was doing, sympathy hit her, and that's what made her feel so upset that she hasn't cleared the misunderstanding with him yet, but Iris steps in, swears she'll take care of everything herself, and promises that once it's settled, she'll invite him to her birthday. Then Samia beams back at her with a thankful smile. After that, during a training match in Nazmu's class, Amri sat there with a heavy heart, glaring at Nazmu while the teacher's assistant ran the action. Because he slipped out last time, Nazmu leans in and tells everyone the truth. 10th grade only has one teacher's assistant, but 1st grade has several, and then he lays out more. During their afternoon practical session, they fire up ritual magic like it's showtime, and when it's over, they set up sparring battles, because they're ready if Mars comes knocking. He tells him it's his fault. Having him as an opponent brings nothing but bad luck. And when Mars keeps humiliating him, Nazim finally realizes that his body is in way better shape than before. Now he can rip the restraints off his power and erase the suppression holding him back. He just doesn't want to. Let them go right now. He feels it in his bones, like if he hesitates, something's going to snap, and yeah, he's already won. He can't shake the doubt in his head. Should he really risk using Kai's techniques his master drilled into him at the academy? As soon as the match kicks off, the second showdown between Nazmu and Mars erupts right away. Mars sprints straight at Nazim, weapon blazing in his grip. Nazimu channels his Kai and slams it into defense to shield his attack. Nazimu. Mars swooped down from above, ready to crush him. But it was a nasty trick. He lunged in from the side to catch everyone off guard. Nazimut snaps back fast, twists out of the strike, and sends the whole attack sliding off course. Right after that, Mars charges in and swings a crushing downward strike to take Nazim out. But Nazima slams the attack aside, and Mars freezes in shock because that was his deadliest move. Nazumu slashes at him with a katana, and Mars snaps it aside with a clean deflection. Nazim whips his ankle into Mara's stomach, landing a crushing hit just like that. The attack yanked him off his feet, and the ground grabbed him hard by the hair, and drove his knee straight into his face. Mars jerked back a little, and when Nazima lunged after him, Marzin steadied himself, then grabbed the truth and told her it was him. So he doesn't get cocky, Nazimu freezes on the spot and can't stop wondering just how far Kai has pushed himself toward Mars. Right now. Obsessed, then Mars rips out Dust Blade and vows he'll tear his opponent to pieces. The Wustwind Blade summons a heavy blast of compressed wind, turbocharging every slash so it hits faster and hits harder. Then Mars whips in with a diagonal smash, and Nazma jukes out of the way at the last second. Then Mars lunges in fast and whips a left swing at him, but Nazimud slips out of the way again. Nazima figured that from so far away he could dodge the wind blade, and because his attacks kept repeating, he'd guess the next 2 or 3 moves before they even hit. Meanwhile, Mars had zero clue what was going on. His blade just wouldn't reach the target, all because his wind spirit's protection kept it from landing. Mars can't help but think, if Nazimu hadn't changed, these boosted spells and razor-precise techniques would have outed him already. He fumbles through clumsy blocks, shaky dodges, and bad calls, while Nazmu sneers that the suppression of his powers means he can't do a thing against Mars's attacks, but he has. Right now, he shrugs off attacks without ever breaking his stance. Being a dragon slayer has quietly boosted his physical strength, and he can also unleash the same techniques his master taught him. But right now, Mars hadn't spotted a single opening to strike back, because he was sure he wouldn't let Nazimov outplay him. But Nazimo could read every one of his sword strikes, 5 moves ahead, and then the moment hits, Nazimo's face breaks into a grin because he could finally fight the way he wanted, and Mars knew about. With his powers locked down, he couldn't stop thinking, what if Nazimo faced him with no limits at all? And when pride wouldn't let him fall, he tore into the fight with a brutal barrage of attacks aimed right at him. Nazimudej crashes into every strike, but Mars spots the opening and moves first. Swing down hard and smash into him with a crushing strike. He lunges out of the way in a blink, using his skills and pure force of instinct to dodge the blow. Dust blasts across everything, blinding Mars's view, So he snaps into action and unleashes the skilled dust. Glitter Rem struts on the other side, while Nezmu rips open the sky with Flash Dance. Flash Step is a lightning-fast technique that lets you vanish and reappear in an instant. And the dust cloud suddenly bursts, blasting a wind straight ahead like a battering ram. Nazumu swings it into action. Instant teleportation, so he slipped right into Mars' blind spot. After Mars unleashed his technique, Nazumu vanished from his sight. Then boom, he spotted Nazumu right there, standing nearby. And just as he readied his attack, A.S. Nazuma came in with his blade, Mars tightening up seconds from striking. Then he spots the future, him sliced clean in half, and before the horror can sink in, the bell BLARES, screaming that the training battle is over. Then their teacher slams the lesson shut, tells them the staged battle is over, and reminds them the final exams are coming. Right after that, Amri demands Nazimo talk to him, but Nazimo bolts, claiming he's got something urgent to handle. As Nazimo sprinted away, Mars couldn't stop thinking. Why did his head feel all foggy, and why did irritation keep clawing at him, even though Nazim? No one, then it clicks. He finally realizes why he's been hating him this whole time for never resisting. But the truth is, it's more than that, because in reality, power kept surging through him. He didn't even clock it, so he used that guy as a decoy. But now he finally realizes the truth. Isimu keeps leveling up, and now he can't stop wondering, was he this strong from the very start? Then bam, Iris explodes inside. Nazuma's classroom is totally empty, and she's like, wait, is everyone in a practical session? Then she rushes back to her game, praying she'll still have time to meet him. Just then, she spots Nazem sprinting out of the academy and calls his name, but he's already too far down the road to hear her. He didn't even hear her, and she couldn't reach him in time. Then once he was gone, Iris was left with crushing regret, wishing she could have said one last word, trying to understand why he looked so broken. Chino still hadn't trekked to the city of Alkism and told him to turn back, and that alone had Nazem pacing in pure worry. He couldn't shake the worry. What if the brawl with Tiamat somehow messed with her? He barges into his master's hut and catches her mid-snack. She tells him, study, exams are creeping up, then immediately grabs his hand and begs him to keep her company today. She was acting drunk, so Nezmu grabbed the cookie she was munching and found alcohol hidden inside. She yanked Nazima by the hand and shoved him right beside her. Yet Nazima felt a sharp sting from her ridiculous, unstoppable strength. Right after that, she leans in and tells Nazim she needs to talk, just for a moment. Then she snaps and blurts out incoherent words out of nowhere. About the country she was born in and the wild way she made it to this continent. She also. I asked where he was from and what his family was like, but she only let him spill a little. She blabbered nonstop about techniques and nothing else, and though she had zero right to gripe about her student, he still saw her as useless and somehow couldn't help appreciating her anyway. She swore that if she'd been born a few decades later, she'd have begged to live right next to him. What a tragedy that it'll never happen. But there's something else. When will she finally break free from his heart and walk away? After that, she told him they were starting their final lesson, and it hit him like a shock. Nazim demanded what she meant, and she snapped back that this was the last chance to train him, then warned that his final lesson would be a no-holds-barred fight with her, right to the very end. Then death hangs in the air, and Shino suddenly snaps into a Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter to close the distance, right on the target. He sets his sights on the throat. Nazim barely scrapes out of the way of that attack. Chino slams a brutal kick into him, and he gets blasted flying through the air. Then he slams straight into a tree with a bone-rattling crash. He shot up and demanded to know what she was trying to pull off. Shino wouldn't let him ask a single question during training, and if he protested, she'd just slam him with even more exercises, leaving him stunned, because even when she pulled moves that could kill him, she never really tried to kill him, she just uses. Flesh launches the strike to begin the attack, and Nazima slams into it to block him. She's been lying. To land razor-precise punches back to back, so even when he shifts his whole body, the barrage won't stop, not for a second. Even when he effectively moves his whole body, the attack will still be. He reaches in, then snatches the moment, slams her strike aside and backs off, but Shino won't let him breathe as she keeps pressing forward with that same move. He snaps forward in an instant and keeps the assault coming, chaining attacks with the same school of swordplay and matching skills. Skills and experience. His razor-sharp sword techniques blend with everything he's mastered. Her combat style fused martial arts with clever sheath, sealed with Kai techniques that could crack a human's bones in seconds. Each hit landed weaker than the last, but she didn't slow down. She kept striking faster and faster, and you could see her skill and strength were miles ahead. Between him and his master, a sudden counterstrike lands with two weapons, cracking across his arm and yanking him down hard as he focuses on Kai for a split second. At the exact moment everything hits, she snaps in with a brutal vertical strike, but Nazimo just barely slips out of the way, and when she snaps a kick at him, he braces instantly, because he knows he can't afford to let that strike land with full force. After that, she drove a kick into him, and Nazimo feels like his insides just got twisted inside out. That superficial methods won't cut it, so if that's the route you take, you... He clenched his resolve, gambled it all on his most dependable weapon, the Phantom Blade. That he's the one brandishing the Phantom Blade, but Shino's got one too. And it doesn't just use it, it slams the cancel button right at the same time. Nazima couldn't believe it. She actually managed to shut down his Phantom Blade. In the blink of an eye, Shino's Phantom Blade shot straight for him. It was already too late for him to dodge. He understood that to stop the Phantom. A Phantom Blade hangs in the air beside her as she races to find Kai's blade, because it'll mirror the exact same deadly trajectory as the one he just threw. Then she stalks up to him, glaring and threatening him. She orders him to rip off the shackles on his powers, then pushes him to do exactly that. He's got to drop it and finally let it go, because the only way he'll beat her is by moving on. He knows this is his one shot, but he's not willing to gamble his life on it. Tiamat's a spirit, so she's still trapped in his body, and every time he suppresses his powers, it chokes her soul, which is why he knows he has to rip her out before she disappears. He'll slash through his master with those chains, and if he does, Tiamat will finally be free. I couldn't shake that unbreakable will, or the look in his eyes dripping with pure resentment. Then she fires back, asking why he hesitates, right before she crashes in again, and after a while his vision starts to blur and the noise shrank into the distance. Numbness crawled through his arms and legs like freezing water, and he understood. He was dying. But if his master did it, he figured everything was totally okay. Then it hit him. She looked like she was about to break, and before he could ask anything, she spilled the truth. She was going to die soon, and the clock was basically out. She even admitted she'd caught the deadly sleep sickness, but Nazimo just couldn't make sense of her words. So what disease is it? Why are all the Kai users fixating on it so hard? Then she leans in and spills everything. How her family betrayed her, how she had to run for her life, and how she ended up fleeing to this continent. And she tells him that he and she are eerily alike. She swore she never wanted to see another soul again, and she didn't even care if she died. That's why she ended up living out here in a place like this. But after years of wandering this forest and getting nowhere, she finally met him. While he, unlike her, never truly surrendered to life. And at first she couldn't stand how eerily he mirrored the very person she used to be. She sends him the thing she's been holding back and tells him this is her final selfish ask. Then she asks if she'll accept her final wish, because she already knows exactly how it all ends. If Nazim tries to talk her into staying, she'll be dragged against her will. He's always bolted the moment things get tense, but if he bolts this time, because his owner wants it right now, he'll never be able to meet her eyes again, and once it's done, he fully shatters. He rips the chain off, then stares down Tiamat, because she's trapped inside him. He lunges to step on him, but he slips aside at the last second. He slams him with his tail and launches him through the air. Then he crashes hard onto the ground. Nazima was hanging on by a thread. Then he hauled himself upright, burning every ounce of willpower just to move. But Tiamat sucks in a breath right in the chaos of the fight. He clings to his teacher's words and blurts out, "I never asked for this." Tiamat unleashes a scorching breath, then rockets upward into the sky. With a savage blow, Tiamat rips him clean in half. Sunk deep inside Tiamat's womb, he looks up and sees 5 colored lights burst across the screen, and the whole place erupts with pure excitement. The countdown is in full swing, right now no mercy. When he stepped into the real world, he unleashed his dragon exterminator power, so strong it shot up to the clouds, and she was terrified it would crush her student. But he, pushing through because power is still spilling from his body, and if this keeps going, he's done. Either that power swallows him whole and he drops dead, or the cruelest fate hits, his body gets torn apart, and then the dragon comes back to life. They pushed the fight even harder. Sure, Shino was the more skilled fighter, but Nazim's strength was absolutely brutal. Got even stronger. Then out of nowhere, a massive fight erupted between them when the clash doesn't let up. Boom, both of them slam back with everything they've got. He fires a seismic cannon. Compressed air blasts out, and it hurls the opponent back like an earthquake in a tube. Then she whips out the Phantom Blade, and Nazmo Shino was blown away when he pulled out a different one. He didn't back down to her, not in skill, not in talent, because they matched each other perfectly. They fought it out on pure level ground, both of them equal to the bone. Unleashes a devastating strike, an infamous technique that. A shockwave hit the scene, exploding outward in perfect sync, everything just ripped apart. Tear through his internal organs. After they launched their devastating strike, Shino tells Naza to sing his master's greatness out loud, but Naza. Muse swore he'd beat her. Then the story dove into the origin of ritual magic, where a single ritual had to be performed for. People even offer dances to gods and spirits. Then they fuse those moves with martial fighting, and that whole deadly combo is called ritual martial art. They drill the katana's moves like a dance, chasing the perfect rhythm to finish the ritual, and stir the magic particles hanging in the air. They break into ritual magic, yanking in the glowing particles around them to fuel their bodies. Each time they keep dancing, their power spikes higher and higher. Because Nazumu barely knows any magic, there's no way he could juggle Kai and spells at the same time. Yet with sheer stubborn training, he keeps pushing forward. With his razor-sharp Kai control and rock-steady calm mind, his magical controls stacked up into an unstoppable power. And that flawless dance unlocked even the most elite, top-tier technique. He couldn't believe it. Less than 2 years of brutal, hellish training to master her special technique. Then he slammed through a creature with absolute power, and still somehow his explosive strength kept shrinking. So after that, both of them lock in their stances and unleash the technique. Phantom Blade Flash. The blade with that final, razor-sharp edge blasted forward at full throttle. Then the collision hit. Their blades slammed together. Nazumu's sword exploded into shards, while Shino's blade shot up into the sky and she crashed onto the ground. Then Nazumu closed the distance. She strides up to Shino, sparks in her eyes, and tells him he's gotten strong. There's simply nothing left she can teach him about swordsmanship. Then she leans in and admits she's relieved he accepted her last request and finally understood what she was really feeling. With her final breath on the edge, she shoved her hard advice into his hands, because she never got the chance to say it sooner, and as her eyes finally fluttered shut, she whispered that she's heading to rest now, but she'll catch him later. After Nazemu dies, she hauls her blade back into shape and starts repairing it with furious determination. For using him, he carves out a grave for her. Then he sprints away before the story can catch up. She clutches her determination like a weapon and charges. In Al-Qasim, way off in the distance, the valet leans in and tells his master the deadline on his predecessor's contract is creeping closer. And it's not just any deal, it's an agreement with a powerful, respected family from the country south of here. With the return day looming, he reached out and asked what they were gonna do now that he had to bring back the thing he'd borrowed. The Lord said, "I'll decide. If anything's wrong, you can turn it down." Then the steward pressed, "Are you really sure with the country like this?" And the Lord smirked, saying, "It could stir up trouble for the emperor, but we're not doing this against his will." Since a Jaluni's family member was coming too, he tells him to hurry up, and the butler snaps that he gets it and will go fetch it right away, Salmonati. This is where the continent's absolute best pack in, and the rating system starts to matter. This system doesn't just deliver benefits, it also unleashes real damage. The higher your rank, the richer the perks. And the academy lets that power go straight to their heads, so the top lot starts treating the lower-ranked kids like they're nothing. Even if a few got praised in their hometown, life dragged them down to the lowest level, where nobody remembers their name. Anyone who couldn't handle the pressure snapped their focus to the bottom of the barrel. Nozomo, the one even lower than them. Then Professor Henry storms into the classroom and starts telling the students what's next. She tells them, "In our 3rd year, I'll be teaching 10th grade, then gently warns, "Don't freak out about being stuck in the lowest rank." And they've got to learn to harness their raw talent. Then right after that, he leans in and fires off a few cheering words to the students, then grins as he locks eyes with Nozomo. Feels all shy, and as Henry keeps pushing the lessons, Mars slips into a storm of deep thoughts. Watching Nazumu go all in during their group combat training session. Nozomo suddenly got trapped in a bad spot, because he had zero company with him at all. Their mission is to teach the students how to fight off multiple opponents and make split-second calls that still keep them inside the rules. Then, out of nowhere, Mars swept up to him and asked, right there in front of him, if he wanted to see what he'd brought. He begs to join their party, and it floors everyone, even Nazumu. Mars's crew can't stop staring, begging the same question. Why on earth is he doing this, and what does he stand to gain? Nothing. While Nazumu was left completely clueless about what he was trying to do, he still answered him. Mars was the team he begged to join. Then the moment everyone finished forming their parties, Professor Henry shoved them into the practical session, and it kicked off the instant the battle started. Two students from the other side slam into Mark for the kill. He swings that massive sword and knocks away both of their attacks. Meanwhile, Nozomu sprints to Mars to come to his rescue. A blade of wind slashes across his path out of nowhere, and when he looks closer, he realizes it's coming from a fighter on a rival team. Right after that, a student from the other team charged at him, and he knew they weren't here to play. They were trying to knock them down one by one. Nozomu slams his block up to stop the attack. Then just as he's about to strike back, a blazing fireball rockets straight for them. Nozomu twists aside at the last second, dodging the fireball. Then he spots something from their teammate's message. Then his teammates followed up right after that. They tear into him as useless, while an enemy crew quietly creeps closer behind their backs. He ended up on Nozomu's back, whipping his arms around to block every slash from a long sword and a dagger. And then his allies crash in from behind, hitting them hard. Because his own teammates kept tossing him under the bus with every attack, he snapped and cooked up a plan. As he slams in a brutal horizontal strike, he slammed the enemy students back until they had to retreat. Then he bolted straight to his teammates, while they blasted fireballs and launched roaring blasts through the air. They rush in to stop him, but he slips past every strike with razor timing, twists aside their attacks, and then knocks them all away like it's nothing, right before he disarms them with his. And it smashes straight into the stomach. The enemy team pounces the moment chaos hits, slams into him from the blind side, and throws him off completely. Then Mars swoops in from the side, ends the fight in a blur, and immediately charges them, triggering his wind blade and ripping into the attack, and launches them into the air, because if Nozomu hadn't backed off from Flash step, he's getting in no question. Nozomu stares straight at the terrifying threat. What makes Mars feel like a friend? Panic hit. Nozomu had already started thinking about it earlier. When Mars invited him to the party, he instantly switched up his usual vibe. Meanwhile, Mars stared at Nozomu and swore something had changed about him, like he'd transformed, and he couldn't stop staring at how fast he decided in ground combat, and he kept wondering where that kind of skill came from. So he figured Nozomu was heading into the forest solo and decided he had to see it with his own eyes. On his way back from class, Nozomu suddenly felt eyes on him, like someone was trailing his every move. And when he thought about slipping into the forest, he couldn't shake the fear that he might. He slips free from them, but the moment he does, dread crawls up his spine. He can't shake the fear that someone's going to figure out he's a dragon hunter. If he carelessly shakes them off, he'll still land in trouble. But if they chase him straight to his master's house, things get way uglier. He'll be pushed to some remote spot and stand there, glaring like a warning. That land is his. Then out of nowhere, Mars bursts from the shadows. What surprises Nozomu, because when it hits hard. Nozomu demanded to know why they were chasing him, and the other guy just smirked, because it's right there. What he wanted to find out, then Mars suddenly snatched him. Nozomu lunges, snatches his katana, and slams it into the attack just in time to deflect his blade. Nozomu reels back from his strike, then slips into retreat fast. He demanded to know what Mars was doing, and Mars snapped that he was forcing an answer. Then Nozomu shot back, "Why'd you suddenly attack me?" After that, Mars went all in on Nozomu, and Nozomu was blown away that it didn't even make him dizzy. Nozomu slips out of the way of that heavy weapon swing, then snaps into a sharp parry. He snaps his weapon toward the ground and shoves aside the next strike. Then Nozomu launches himself down. Mars tries to climb higher with a weapon, then it slips from his grasp, so he drops it and charges in with his power, continuing the fight. A fist that drinks in the wind. Technique builds up air inside your knuckles, then blasts it out to hurl your opponent flying back. Cornered at a dead end, Mars snaps, saying Nozomu's sword techniques hit harder than his, and then he blurts that he wants to learn how. Even with his powers forced down, he's climbed this far, and now he's sure that once he cracks the truth behind it, he'll get even stronger. After the fight, Mars threw out a real apology for the attack and fired off the big question: where did he learn those techniques? Nozomu just said he had a teacher, and he'd been grinding those moves for ages. Mars had been living under her guidance since his very first year, and when he asked if he could finally meet her, Nozomu shut him down. She'd already died. So Mars pushed again, asking what training he'd endured, and then he went right on with the questions. So Nozomu spilled the brutal, hellish training he survived, and Mars swore that now he finally gets it. He truly understands why it was all worth it. Mars realized his improvement was all because of his master. He's always on the move, dodging and weaving away from danger. He learned how to flip being surrounded into a clean one-on-one showdown while monsters that hunted in packs chased him. And he realized those training fights sharpened his instincts, so he could decide fast and act with logic. Then Nozomu confronted him, demanding to know why he'd tailed him and whether he'd actually swung first just to get that answer. Hesitates for a beat, and just as he's about to finally speak, from far away someone yells, "Big bro," and she snaps, demanding, "Do it again, give me more." Why would he drag someone to a lonely, deserted spot, then turn around and demand, "So why are you really here?" She told him she'd been watching him the whole time, and she even spotted him during the extortion. Then she kept going. She gave him a sharp scolding, and Nozomu instantly felt bad for him. Then she turned around and apologized. And then she drops the bombshell that she's Mars's younger sister, Ine Dickens. Nozomu greets her and blurts out that he's in Mars's class, then Aina. She drags him into her inn for dinner, and after she finally talks him into it, Nozomu shoots back that he'll finally say yes to her proposal. Then they walk into their tavern, and Ine starts snapping at her mother because Mars has messed with someone again. Then she straight up calls Nozomu the same guy who was freaking out about Mars, and her mom chimes in and says that she sweeps him to dinner to say she's sorry. Then their mother clamps down on Mars' ear, and it all kicks off. After that, she hustles him into the lecture hall, and a bit later she returns with their pride and joy. Burro served straight to Nozomu. A bowl of rabbit steak and salad sat in front of her, and she grinned like it was completely free. As an apology tells him to keep moving forward. After a bit, Nozomu finally finishes her meal, then lights up with praise for her cooking. Then her mom pushes Aina out to greet the clients and snaps Nozomu's attention. She wants to know what he really thinks about Mars and Aina. He shot back that Ina's had carved her thoughts into place. But Mars never treated him right, and he never bothered to hide it. Then he leaned in and said, "Mars." Mars's attitude toward him has flipped lately, and his mother finally told him that to her it's crystal clear. She tells him Mars has someone else he's dying to be friends with, and Nozomu is left completely baffled. He swears he wants to be friends with him, but he can't figure out how to apologize for what he did back then. Meanwhile, Mars's dad snaps, asking if he wants to quit all that, and then he hits him with one more question too. If Nozomu is the reason behind his strange behavior, then suddenly, he demanded to know why he lost to him, and that answer lit a fire of annoyance in him. His father said, "I know because I'm your father," but Mars snapped back, "Then tell me, how did you get so strong?" Then he asked if he could step out, and the other guy snapped back, "Nope, if Nozomu catches wind of this, he'll think something's off. He's the one in trouble," and then his father cuts him down, mocking him while flipping between his good traits and his bad ones. His dad figured he'd never once let anyone in. He accepts them after the whole mess, and once it's done, joy bursts out of him like he can't hold it in anymore. To bring a friend, even if it felt like he had no choice but to do it. He told Mars to apologize to Nozomu, and when Mars said he already knew, he slipped past him and made sure Nozomu was seen out. Just outside his house, he swallowed his pride and apologized to him for everything that had gone down before. Nozomu stares at him, his thoughts spiraling to his brand new son. He took the apology, gave him a quick nod, and said everything was totally fine. Mars thanks him, but Nozomu just smirks, because his sister already tore into him. Mars suddenly feels weird about it and tells him to just drop the whole thing. The very next morning, Professor Henry lit up and told everyone she was thrilled that Nozomu and Mars finally clicked as friends. Meanwhile, Nozomu realized Mars was already getting dragged into that place. They dragged him to the medical point for lunch because he couldn't stop talking to. Mars has changed, and you can feel it in the air around his class. The boys who used to mess with him just stare from afar, and his followers don't trail behind him anymore. The hours they share keep piling up, and for some reason, Miss Henry is buzzing like crazy. Then Professor Norn drops the twist. Henry says Mars isn't a bad kid at all. She was terrified for him, then Mars demanded why, and she answered that it was because he replayed everything he'd done, faced it head-on, and finally made peace with himself. Out of nowhere, Iris bursts into the infirmary and demands to know if Mrs. Norn is there. And there's an injured student caught in the chaos. But then Iris spots Nozomu, grins like trouble, and whispers that it all was. Everybody in the room freezes in shock, then they swarm him with the same questions. How did you meet? And what were you doing all that time? Nozomu figured it might have started when he pushed away from her back then, but the real fear hit hard. She could snap at anything, and he didn't know how to stop it. Meanwhile, Iris was grinning about their meeting, but Thelma shot her a reminder. There was a patient to handle. Miss Norn leaned in and asked what happened, and Iris blurted that her magic had blown up. When she was training in magic, Norn insisted there was nothing wrong with it. With that said, medication and healing magic will come in clutch and mend everything up. Then she fires up her healing magic and tells you to come back the second you feel even a hint of discomfort. On the other side, Telma stared at Nozomu, shaking with fear. Then the second she saw Mars's furious face, her eyes spilled into tears. Nozomu hurriedly asked if everything was okay, but Mars snapped that it was nothing, even while pure rage burned in his veins. The evil took root because Thelma feared anyone below her rank, and still somehow she scared herself, thinking Mars was even worse than a monster, until Norn finally wrapped up the treatment and thanked Eerie. Nozomu brings her over. Then Iris throws him a grateful thank you, but he just shrugs and says he was only in the right place at the right time, and Iris says. She told him she needed a minute, and Nozomu asked if it was okay. Iris said she wanted to talk in private, away from everyone, and Miss Norn said she could make it happen. The storeroom, then she rushes in and apologizes to Nozomu. She told him, the last time I asked you a rude question, things didn't end well, and Nozomu snapped back. He should swallow his pride, apologize first, and ask Thelma what she came for, only for her to say she came to apologize too. Even after he risked everything to save her in the forest, she turned around and treated him like trash. Iris fires back that dealing with men is tough for her, and she's caught wind of rumors about him. Then Nozomu brushes it off with, everything's fine, and just when he begins. The second he hears those rumors circling his name, he crumples into a deep depression. After that, Iris clocked that something felt off with him, so she leaned in and asked, are you okay? He brushed it off like it was nothing, told them to head back, and then Iris stepped in, nudging Nozomu to introduce himself. So that's why he brings out Mars and Henry, because Mars is acting downright weird. Iris tells Nozomu his friend is nothing but strict. Then Mars glares at Telma in pure rage, and Telma immediately crumbles into fear. Then he slips out, takes a seat by the window, and Iris tells Nozomu that Samia's birthday is right around the corner. She wants. So he'd come too. Nozomu asked if he could stay there, and Iris flashed him a reassuring smile. Everything was totally fine. She said that. Because he's Samia's friend, nothing can go wrong. He promised he'll be there for sure, and Iris can't wait to tell him Samia's gonna freak out with joy. Then Iris leans in and asks Mars, do you want to come too? And it shocks everyone. Mars snaps back that he's no friend to either of them, but Iris shrugs it off, because he's a friend to Nozomu. Iris. She leaned in and told him she'd heard rumors he was stirring up trouble everywhere he went, yet she still kept calling him a friend. Nozomu and friendship feel impossible, yet she swears he's sharp as attack. Mars shoots her a deadly, threatening glare. She tells him he's so easy to read, like a stray dog that can't hide its moves, and right after that. They get into it for a moment, and Iris tells him she won't be hurt if he says no. Then she tells him. So she'll play the perfect hostess, and he'll get ready for the most delicious food imaginable. Right after they left, Nozomu asked if he'd follow, but he slammed the door on that idea. Then Nozomu leaned in and demanded to know what he really felt about Thelma. He snapped back that it drives him crazy when strong fear the weak. And then Mrs. Norn suddenly chimed in, saying that for some people, too much power is exactly what turns into fear. And this is exactly how savage her magic is. So after that, Nozomu sinks into deep, heavy reflection. He tests his power again, and the moment he remembers shattering a boulder with his bare fist, it hits like lightning. Later, as he strolled through the city, his mind raced with one question. What gift could he prepare? That bold bracelet on her wrist. It came straight from her sister. Zamu somehow knows this is what makes her glow with happiness, so he turns right back to his master. Inside the cabin, a couple of bells hangs and waits, ready to ring at any moment. He grabs his belt and all the tools his master left behind, then starts crafting a gift for Samia, using the calls that kept failing on his first try, so he pushed a little longer and kept at it. A few days later, they roll up to Iris's mansion, and the size of it blows them away. Mars confronts Aina and demands why she's there despite not being invited, and right after that run-in with Iris, Aina snaps at Mars, because she learns he treated Telma terribly. She said she's not letting this go until Mars apologizes to her the right way. No. Then he shoots Mars a look full of sympathy, but right after that, rage flares up. He turns mad like Mars, and the sisters kick off a full-blown screaming match, and the maid barges in like a referee, demanding they shut the noise down. Then Nozomu tells the maid they're here for Samia's birthday, and that they were invited, right when the maid swings the gate shut in his face and says she can wave suspicious strangers onto the estate, until Iris shows up, grabs the moment, and orders the maid to open the gates, insisting, "These are my friends." Nozomu shoots her a grateful nod, then barks at Mars to cut the arguing and come inside. Mars and Aina burst up to him, baffled, demanding to know why he stayed silent for so long. Iris turned to Aina, flashed a warm smile, and asked her to introduce herself. Iris jumps in with a quick introduction, and Aina shoots one right back. Then Aina closes the distance and moves in. Thelma shoots an apology her way for her brother's rude behavior, then turns to Mars and demands, "Now you apologize too." They shoot out apologies, but it's not even long before the arguing sparks up again. Meanwhile, no. Soma tries to rein everything in. Then Iris bursts into laughter, practically enjoying the chaos unfolding in front of her. Everyone was stunned, and Thelma couldn't believe it. She'd never heard herself laugh that hard before. Iris apologized for laughing, and told them they were probably right on top of it. Then Iris pulls Aina into Somia's party, only for Aina to shoot back with a reply. She showed up just to apologize and left empty-handed, no gift in sight, and Iris reassured her, telling her not to stress because it's the thought that matters. Mars also said everything's totally fine, because she's the one who picked out the gift for him. Aina used Mars's money to buy Somia candies for the gift, so it's really something both of them gave. Ine says she wants to come, so Iris ushers everyone inside the mansion, right into the unknown. The maid strides up to them and demands they hand over their swords. Iris ushers everyone into the hall and declares, "This is where the party happens." She told them it was about to start, then ordered them to hang tight for a little while after. Time keeps slipping by, and that's how it goes. Somia barrels into the hall and immediately wraps Iris in a tight hug the moment she shows up for the party. Iris beams and thanks every single person who showed up for her sister's party, then sends them off with a big wish that they'll have an amazing time. Aina then takes a bite of a bunch of dishes, and her eyes light up like, "These are going straight onto my menu," because every single one tastes too good to ignore. Meanwhile, Mars and Nozomu take one bite, freeze in stunned silence from the flavor, and right after that, Samia shows up to greet them. He beams at Nozomu and congratulates her on her birthday. She flashed a warm smile and thanked him for showing up to her birthday. She wanted to know who those people were lurking behind him, so Mars and I both jumped in and introduced ourselves. Samia begs them to call her by her name, but Mars just calls her a girl, and Aina's fury instantly sparks on the other hand. Iris slid up to Nozomu and asked if he liked it. He shot back, "Yeah." But then he begged for permission to leave Mars and Aina to handle their own business, and Iris answered. Everything's going great. Samia's laughing right along. Then Nozomu locks eyes with her and a rush of red creeps into his face. Iris clocks that he's blushing and shoots him a worried look. "Are you okay?" Then steps in close to press. "Is something wrong?" She stared at his hand and demanded if that was his gift for Somi. He nodded with a steady yes, so she thanked him and said, since Samia is actually looking forward to the party, Iris takes her chance and tells Nozomu she's never thanked him. Zoma was totally flustered, so she blurted out that she wanted to thank him for showing up to the party. She said they throw a birthday celebration for Samia every single year, but this time Samia's glowing with joy because of them. And then she pointed out that Samia's got a soft, sensitive heart, like it was shaped by the way she was raised in. In the higher world, their mother died giving Somia life, so someone stepped in to play mom. But on her birthday, Somia's grief still hit hard. She swore everything's different this time, because of them, and even told him Samia never shuts up about him while they're at the estate. Nozomu swallowed it and believed every word. She can't flip that much because of him, and Iris snaps that it's because she's too sensitive. Servants don't get to run wild, so she just wants him to forget all of this when he talks to Somi. Then he gives in to her request, and she blurts out a huge thank you. She calls him kind, but he shakes his head and shuts that compliment down. She insisted he wasn't like that at all. And then she said he was different, because most people only throw out half-hearted words of sympathy. But when it was his turn, he shut it down and told her he had nothing to say. She said he didn't just brush things aside. He weighed his position with surgical care, and that he definitely isn't the person the whole academy thinks he is. She knows he's the real deal, and right now he's still at the academy, because every thought he has keeps dragging him back to his childhood friend, Lisa. So she's convinced those academy rumors are pure nonsense. Even though she's got zero proof, she just trusts her gut. He fires back, "What do you mean?" And she smiles, saying her intuition is something she's totally sure of. Nozomu's smile blooms the moment he hears her words, yet somehow it feels like everything's about to change. Somia snaps that Mari's corals have got to stop, because she's completely done with them. Nea grabs Iris and Nozomus, begging them to help put a stop to it, and the two immediately rush off to handle it. Meanwhile, a steward from a far-off castle comes storming up to their estate gates and tries to slip inside, but the maid blocks him cold, because the party's underway. He wouldn't stop, so he snapped his fingers and sent the maid crashing to the floor. Then he snapped again. Once he cast his magic, he bursts into the mansion. Right after that, the butler bursts into the festive hall, and everyone freezes like they've just seen a ghost. It slams down on him, and Nozomo asks Iris. That guy was there, and when she said no, he didn't stand a chance, because right after that, everything spiraled. Someone starts whispering shady gossip about the butler, and Iris strides right up to him. They demand to know why he crashed the party uninvited, and he answers with a cool introduction. I'm a steward for a nobleman from my country. My name's Legato. Then he leans in with a suggestion, like he's about to shake the whole room. Iris and Somaliana own this estate, and when Iris faced him, she snapped that she really was the mistress. Then refused his request, furious that he'd barged in without permission and wouldn't even name his master. Legato then asked for a private word, but Iris snapped that she wouldn't speak a single sentence to the scoundrel who crashed her birthday without permission. Legato. He told her argument held weight, then said he'd come to deliver a message from the House of Veyart of the Desert Empire, an icy land ringed by. In the northwest of the continent, Arkmill's land goes up in flames, built by 7 races that everyone else cast away, with 0 diplomacy to its name. And during the Great Invasion, the desert alone slammed the monsters back at its borders. And then the legate starts to say, he's running his business with one mission: snatch back the treasure the Franskild family took, the flame of the soul pitch, and he's dead sure it's rightfully the Veyart family's, because that relic grants whoever wields it power. He bragged that he could rip out someone's soul, steal its power for himself, and right now it was linked to Samia's soul, so he was taking it this instant. Iris begged him to hold on, but Lugan. Otto shot his thumb up, and the whole room lurched with it. He grinds at the barrier because Legato is packed with insane magic, so he siphons it into his own body, fires it through at the last second, and smashes his way through. He blasts through the spell, then he snaps, "What was that?" And He shot back that it was probably some kind of hypnotic spell, like mind control in the flesh. Then they spot the magical circle, and realize the barrier blankets the entire Franskild estate, no inch left unprotected. Legato swallowed his pride, apologized for his cruelty, and then told her straight. He had to steal Somia's soul to get the treasure. He demanded what that meant, and he snapped back that he meant it word for word. Then he went on to say that 300 years ago their family struck a deal. The Veyart family would step in and help settle there. He flashed the contract paper and declared that, among the magical devices handed out back then, it was the Soul Flame Stove. Iris flips through the contract and realizes the descendants of Franskild were handed an oath bracelet, sealed proof that the deal was real. She also reads that once the contract runs out, a familiar gets pulled straight from the bracelet to grab the treasure. And then Legato said that, on the way back, the contract snaps shut. Your soul gets yanked out. So Samia, fused with the magical instrument, dies on cue, and then he starts carrying out every last promise like it's already written in stone. Iris tells him to hold on. Then Samia's bracelet erupts in light, and a reaper materializes straight out of it. He told her this guardian of the contract and the treasurer are watching, so don't fret. You'll feel 0 pain and 0 suffering. Right as the familiar tore into Somia's soul, Iris snapped the binding chains of her darkness spell in place, sealing everything shut. It drags the target in place with black chains that glow faintly. Then the familiar yanks them apart on instinct, but Iris snaps in fast and slams the attack right back. The familiar then. She blasts the attacker back, then like magic, she calls Telma for backup. Telma snaps together a sealing net of 4 linked circles, stitching the magic of all 4 elements into one wild, complex structure. A matrix snaps shut and traps the target inside. Then the magical grid freezes the familiar in place. It brings the extraction of Somia's soul to a screeching halt, and then the legate turns to Telma and showers her with praise. He praised her for that complex magic and Iris for the instant activation, then shrugged that stopping the familiar would change nothing, and fired a blast of magic from his finger straight into Thelma's shoulder. The older one? Then Iris snaps. She lunges at him with a weapon in her grip, furious and unrelenting, and meanwhile, Legato snaps his fingers and calls a whole swarm of swords from somewhere beyond. Remember this? He comes barreling in with those swords, but Iris snaps them aside, and just like that, the blades fade into the distance. They told him to creep up behind Samia and grab her before she even knew what hit her, while Telma, battered and scared out of her mind, tried to keep up with the chaos. But she knows if her spell vanishes, Samia dies, so when Thelma was little, she jolted awake packed with wild, powerful magic, and when she couldn't rein it in, dark thoughts started flooding her mind. Even after she stepped into the academy, fear kept whispering that her weird, off-the-charts magic meant she'd never belong, until the day Iris chose to do something on her own. They tracked her down, talked to her, and the very next day, boom, she was woven into their lives for good. They blazed like the brightest stars, and Samia was the sun that chased the darkness away. So when she broke in solitude, it was these two lights that kept her standing. Lugato's magical swords were yanked under control by a whole new spell, and Thelma can't stop staring, because the magic keeps getting way more complex. As the power, looks, and sheer number of active spells surged, Lugato slammed an attack spell at Thelma, and she froze, because moving even an inch would snap her familiar link, right as the strike was about to land. With a stormy swing, Mars smashes her, except his fist hits magic instead, and fiercely protects Thelma. Then he drops She's going to master Legato's magic, then throw her own power behind it to shield Somia. Zamu is cooking up a plan to distract Legato, but he can't pull it off, because he's got no weapon, and that's when Mars sh. He roars at Nazamu, barking for him to grab their swords. Iris flicks him the vault key and orders him to grab their swords. He nods and promises he'll do exactly that. "I'll be right back." The mercenary of impressions shuts down for a breath, because Legato's driving the power, and Iris fires back that he could be just as strong as Professor Jihad, the guy who can take on 100 people solo. They finally realized they had to do something about the familiar. They just didn't have a clue how to put it down. Iris swears that contract paper is basically a summons in disguise. Getting it won't be easy, but she still clings to the hope that they'll pull off the win and Iris. Mars snaps that Thelma must be protected, while Nazamu grabs for his swords, his mind racing as he insists Iris and the others can't possibly beat Legato. He can't stop asking himself one thing: can they really pull off a win without first shattering the suppression on his power? He's terrified if he dares to use that power, everyone will see him as a monster, and he'll end up alone again. On the flip side, Mars squares up and blocks Legato's magic with bloody fists, putting everything on the line for Thelma. Iris is ripping into the battle, slashing with his magical swords. Everyone looked totally wrecked when, out of nowhere, Lugato tore loose with brutal, earth-shaking magic, and he shrugs off Mars, then blasts Thelma with yet another brutal magic attack, hammering her with serious damage, and Iris starts to panic, because something feels terribly wrong. Because both of them are sprawled out and knocked out cold on the floor, and right after that, the magic. The familiar's stream cuts out, and he bolts off to snatch Samia's soul. Iris barrels in to rescue Somia, but Legato slams down swords and stops her cold. The familiar lifts its scythe high and charges in. Samia's about to get hit. Nozomo shows up at the perfect second and slashes the familiar clean in half. The phantom blade power, the bracelet that obliterates summons and Somia's ruthless chains. Samia teams up with an acquaintance, and as the two of them move together, the acquaintance starts vanishing. Then Samia snaps his gaze forward and spots something as the scene cuts off mid-discovery. A quick little shot, Nazamu throws herself in front of her to shield her from danger. Meanwhile, Nazamu's tense as hell as he leans in and asks his. The master has no choice but to deal with it. Then later, Legato spots the wreckage, broken right in front of him. And that bracelet, he stared in disbelief as the familiar got wiped out by two brutal sword strikes. Thelma and Mars burst with relief when Nazamu finally showed up and practically scolded him for being late. Nazamu hands Mars his sword and blurts out an apology for the fact that he clocked Mars and Thelma's condition way too late and realized they couldn't fight back. Suddenly, the shattered bracelet snaps back into place, and a glowing barrier wraps around it like a shield. Legato bragged that with his contract in hand, he could resurrect the familiar over and over as many times as he wanted. Nazamu shot back, asking if he was really about to steal Somia's soul, and Legato fired back. He has to carry out his master's orders no matter what. But Nazamu has zero clue what a noble family is supposed to do, or what really went down 300 years ago. But he couldn't stand the idea of Samia, who knew nothing, getting sacrificed and blamed for it, so when Nazamu and Legato were still bickering, Iris snapped out, said it didn't matter, and threatened Nazamu. She wouldn't let him take Samia's life. Then Iris leans in and begs Nazamu to run her move a few more times, then help her nail it. Ripping up the contract paper, he blurted, "Okay," and the two of them locked in their positions for. As the battle erupted, Legato snarled, "Strengthen." In their country, nothing matters more than this. It's prized above everything else. It tells them to beat its power if they want any chance to reject the contract's terms. And just like that, the fight erupts. Nozomu rockets forward and charges straight at Legato, while Iris fights tooth and nail against Legato's magical assault. The log slams away his strike, and then they trade a flurry of punches, one after the other. Nozomu spots a weird wobble in Legato's movements, like something S about to snap. The moment he moves, he twists his body and swings that chopping strike from a totally new angle. Then Legato spots the shift in his movements at once, and crashes in to intercept Nozomu's attack. Nozomu knew his sword skills were sharp, but his body was the weak link, so he started hammering his strength day by day. Legato suddenly flings a magical spell out of nowhere, cutting off their chance to catch up in skill, right in the middle of it. Nozomu snaps out of the way on instinct, and right after that, Legato throws his hands together and prays. He praised his sharp instincts, then snapped that he still lacked the right techniques. Iris tried to slip in a surprise strike from behind, but right as Legato locks eyes with her and snaps her attack aside, then the moment shifts. After that, while Iris is locked in a brutal sword duel with Legato, Nozomu starts charging up the Phantom Blade skill. Legato catches on fast and whips up a multi-layered magical wall, slamming the Phantom Blade's attack aside. Then Nozomu shatters the magical wall in an instant, and before Legato can react, they both lunge in for the attack at the exact same time. But he shrugs off their attack like it's nothing. Iris and Nozomu lean in, staring at his power like it's a mystery begging to be solved. Sends both of them reeling, then charges in and attacks them with magic. Both of them dodge the strike and lock eyes, swearing they're just. One full force attack is all that's left. Once it lands, Nozomu's finally done. He sketches the plan, mouths the words under his breath, and hands it to Iris. Then she tells him she's counting on him, and he bolts straight into battle, This stunt was a gamble for them, since they'd barely ever worked as a team. So when Iris picked up the Abyss list, she put everything on her precision and carried them through. Nozomu and Legato's skills click into place. Then she winds up and hurls the spear, right as Legato. Legato obliterates him with magic, and she tells him, cold as ice, that she tossed him aside earlier. Then boom, Nozomu bursts out of the smoke and nails him completely off guard. He orders a guard to pull the focus away from Iris, then blasts the ground with his Kai technique to pin Legato down. He loses focus and she focuses her lunar eclipse spell, then barrels straight at Legato to land the final crushing blow. But Legato vanishes out of nowhere, and it slams both of them into panic, forcing both. Stunned out of his mind, the magic blast slams Iris backward, and then a chain snaps around both of them. Nozomu gets yanked in by magic. Then he looks up and spots a massive swarm of bats hanging overhead. And then he learns the truth. Legato is a vampire. Legato grips his mithril sword like it's made to end lives. He swore he wouldn't have survived, or walked away unscathed, if that thing ever cut through his heart and he knew the mithril was soaked. Magic unleashes a cleansing blast, one deadly special attack built to wipe out certain races. Vampires can even rip their bodies into bats, and those deep red eyes are impossible to miss. People haven't seen them in centuries, but every continent still trades legends about them, and they've been up to their tricks for ages. The power to enchant monarchs, seduce them, and shatter kingdoms, plus their ruthless gift for drinking others' blood. So yeah, everyone fears them. A hunted race. And after that, the familiar gets rebuilt again, while Nozomu can't stop wondering if he should have unleashed his power the second he realized their abilities didn't match up anymore. If Mars and Telma hadn't gotten injured, everything could have gone another way. Then, right after that, the familiar ripped into Somia's soul. Iris snaps at him to stop, then demands her soul back, and as the moment hits, Somia's soul rips out of her body, and she watches everything from above like it's happening to someone else. A face carved out of stone, no feelings at all, and it sent chills straight through Nozomu. About her dead teacher, then Iris suddenly remembers. Her mom's final words ring out. She tells him to stop, and then Nozomu agreed to grant his teacher's wish. Then he froze, staring at her deeds Iris, while memory flashes of her sister hit him like lightning, and the story cut off mid-charged breath. To save her, Nozomu snaps up in fury and smashes. It rips off the chains that trapped it and sets it free. It rents out its power, then the mansion's windows shatter to pieces. Nozomu's power just hit, and now everyone's freaking out, desperate to figure out what in the world is going on. Anyone who tries to step up calmly to him vanishes from sight in the blink of an eye, and then pops up instantly right in front of someone familiar. The spell shatters him into 12 brutal pieces. Then he scoops Samia up in his arms, and that familiar presence slips away into thin air. Then he instinctively steps back from Nozomo, and when he reads everyone's faces, it clicks. None of them knew about his power, and he can't believe that nobody could stack up that many Ks. Nozomu stared at him like a threat, straight up daring him to flinch. That sight terrifies him. Legato snaps open several magic circles and lunges from every angle, but Nozomu slips every strike with ease. Every attack that hurtled toward him, and every hard shove aimed at Legato. Then things kept spiraling meanwhile. Legato's heart hammered over his speed, and he barely clawed time back, just enough to block Nozomu's attack before it hit. Then, as steel clashed and they traded sword strikes, Legato suddenly felt crushed under the pressure. Nozomu. Then he charges his sword with magic and detonates a massive explosion. Legato even gets a nasty scratch on his cheek from. Boom, an explosion rocks the scene, and it snaps right back into place. Then he slams down a magical circle and unleashes the high-level spell, Maw of Moros, blasting Nozomu with a towering serpent head. Nozomu snaps to the side midair, dodges the hit, and comes crashing down into. Before Legato showed up, they kept clashing blades over and over like one endless fight after another. Legato traded blow after blow, pounding him back and forth until the fight was nothing but impact. On the losing side and seconds from getting snared, he flipped the whole situation and transforms into a swarm of bats to dodge the strike, and then Nozomu keeps going. It barrels straight into the bats, slashing with its claws to crank the fire up even hotter. Suddenly, the flying mouse erupts in a bright glow, and it blurts out. A blast ripped through the spot where Nozomu was standing. Then Legato bursts out of a swarm of bats, shaping into a human, right as. Through the choking smoke, Nozomu braces for a phantom strike. Legato realizes this is the end if that hit lands, so Nozomu snaps a magical wall into place to block the assault, then whips out the phantom blade and carves Legato clean in half from head to toe, with the contract paper still clutched in his hands. The moment Legato crashes to the ground, Simea snaps back to normal, and the chains on Iris jerk back into place. He shifted, Tiamat's power had torn his uniform, and blood seeped through the fabric. Then Iris shouted at Samia to wake up, and Samia slowly blinked her eyes open. She clamps her in a tight hug, and a tear slips down her cheek as Legato leans in and whispers to him, so softly you can barely catch the words, about the vampire. His level won't fall until he rips off the head, then he leans in and tells him, don't worry. He swears he won't lay a hand on Sumia, because he's already crushed her. Then, out of nowhere, Nozomu drops to the ground like he got hit out of thin air. Then it all goes dark for him, and when he finally drifts off, he's trapped in a nightmare where Tiamat is tearing the continent apart, and devours a person, and it spikes his anxiety instantly. Right when Tiamat was about to tear into him, the dream snaps out of existence, and he jolts awake in his bed. Iris and Simea slip into his room and ask how he's feeling, and he shoots back, tell me, how long have I been gone? Iris tells him it lasted about half a day, then lays out how Legato wrecked the contract, and after all that, snapped back to their kingdom. As she restores his body, she tells him Mars and Thelma are already healed, and then she turns to the bigger mission. She wants to rally everyone and lay out the deal with Vajar. Right in the middle of the family scene, Nozomu's stomach growls like thunder. So Iris and Simea rush off to grab him food, and then Iris leans in and tells them how, 300 years back, their family struck a pact with the Woodjart family, trading power and magic to make it all work. Defeat the enemy's forces, because she heard something terrifying, even the current head of the Woodjart family, Ka. To pry the furnace of the soul's flame out of Simea's soul, she's convinced her mother used it. She became Sumi's whole world the moment she arrived, born way too early, and from that day on, she raised her like a mother. Then everyone starts leaning in, asking, is it okay if we listen to this? And she insisted everything was fine, refusing to keep a single secret from the people coming to rescue them. Iris cheers everyone for saving Samea, and Samea turns right back around and thanks them too for pulling her out. Then Mars swings the conversation back to Nozomu's power, presses him on what he meant when he said he'd known he was stronger than he looked. But something about him felt totally different. Nozomu leans in and says he's lifted the suppression on his powers, and he's been able to do it since the end of theirs. Year 2, he also warns them about the dangers of his power, how it can crush someone if he uses it at the academy, but he doesn't tell them he's a dragon slayer because he's not ready for them to find out yet. After that, as he steps out of the estate, he hands Samea her birthday gift and tells her with pride in his voice that he made it himself. She lit up, told him she was happy, and thanked him with a bright, grateful smile.